Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Reservoir Center for Water Solutions. We're really excited today to host the Infrastructure Innovation Forum brought to us by the American Society of Civil Engineers and our sponsor, CDM Smith. For those of you I haven't had a chance to meet, which is most of you, to be honest, my name is Joshua Mahan. I'm Senior Director for Government and Industry Relations for Xylem. We're a global water technology solutions provider. We're based here in Washington, D.C. Likely, many of you engineers hopefully have heard of us, and you'll have a chance to hear a little bit more about us later today from my colleague Renee, who will be joining us for one of the panels. For those of you who are visiting us here for the first time, you're sitting at the Reservoir Center for Water Solutions. We were established about 3.5 years ago in order to create a neutral space for the water sector and other interests to convene, to come together around common themes, convening, generating new ideas, driving action in the water space. So we've been at it for 3.5, almost 4 years now, and we're up to over 80 nonprofit organizations that are considered our partners. Xylem is a partner on equal footing, so we share the building with our partners that are able to use this space for programs, events, networking, and largely we're just trying to serve as a catalyst to bring together thought leaders and action takers in the water space. And we're thrilled to have American Society for Civil Engineers to be a longstanding partner and actually a founding partner as well. So we're really thrilled always to have an opportunity to host ASCE. I'd also say a couple months ago on World Water Day, we co-hosted an event with American Society of Civil Engineers and United for Infrastructure with Ross as well. So we're always excited to share that space. I did want to thank Marcia, who you'll hear from in just a minute, along with Carol Haddock, who participated in that World Water event today. I haven't seen Carol yet, but hey there, Carol. Good to see you. Continue breakfast. That's what it's there for. And then, of course, Josh Shoemaker, who's been a great partner of ours on a whole range of issues. So really thrilled to have all of you in the building today. This morning's agenda brings together an impressive group of leaders from across engineering, policy, and industry to explore how innovation is shaping our future and our infrastructure, from leadership and transformation to workforce development to resilience and water systems. Before I hand it on over to Marcia, I did want to go over a couple of safety protocols. We sit above a couple restaurants, so it's not entirely unusual that we'll get a fire alarm. I think usually in the morning we're okay. But just in case, I wanted to flag for you our evacuation procedures. Should we need to evacuate, you can exit these doors here, make your first left, and then there's a stairwell that will take you downstairs and out that part towards the green between us and District Winery. Don't be distracted by District Winery and head and convene closer to the water so we can account for everybody. I think most of you probably have seen the bathrooms thus far. They're on each side of that kind of bridgeway that you walk in, ladies' room on the far end, gentlemen closer to the cafe area, and then there's a couple bathrooms just around the corner over there. Lastly, if you need to step out to take a call, to have a meeting, we have office space and booths over there that you can make use of, free for you to use. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Marcia to welcome you to the event, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, well, good morning, everybody. Come on. Yeah, hey, I flew overnight to be here, so I need more energy than that. Come on. Good morning, everybody. All righty, thank you. Thank you so much for being part of this really important conversation today. As Josh said, I'm Marcia Anderson Bomar. I have the honor of being the 2026 ASCE president. I want to begin by thanking the Reservoir Center for hosting us today. This is an amazing facility, and I imagine that there's just cutting edge work happening here every day. So we're excited to be partnered with you. Last year, ASCE published our newest report card, 2025. If you don't have a copy, I saw this table full of them outside. I hope you'll take one with you, or You can also access it on the report card website, the ASCE report card website. For the first time ever, we were so excited. It's very methodical. It's very mathematical in its research and conduct. And when all of the numbers were added together, we came out with a grade of C, which is the highest grade we've ever had. The previous report card 4 years earlier was a C minus. And it doesn't sound like much, but it takes a lot to move that needle. Oops, sorry. There we go, sorry. So we're very excited about all of the partners who have helped to advance the science, the technology, the implementation of infrastructure, and the investment that was made, through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that helped to bring us to that improvement. The report card grades are based on 8 categories, which you can see on the website or in that brochure that I mentioned. But highlighted among those, innovation is both a criteria, but also a recommendation in all cases. Investment is critical. Engineers are constantly being asked to do more with less. We all know it's a combination of funding and people. We know we have workforce issues as well. And so we're always trying to adapt what we do and how we do it to meeting the community needs. So continued investment in old practices is not really productive. So it's really important that we convene conversations like this to really see what is out there, what opportunities are there for us to implement cutting edge technologies or innovations overall. In 1900, it wasn't enough for Chicago's civil engineers to continue investing in traditional drinking water and wastewater solutions. As the population and industrial needs grew, waste flowing from the Chicago River was mixing with water in Lake Michigan. Not very pleasant. It was leading to lots of severe health consequences for the people in those communities. The indigenous civil engineers worked to reverse the Chicago River toward the Mississippi River, which, as those people in the room who are civil engineers know, that that's a pretty monumental feat to make that kind of change. But the result was that we now have a healthy population that was able to thrive because of that tremendous innovative solution. Innovation remains a core of all the work that we do. Rather than gamble on when a structure might need repair, we use the state-of-the-art asset management tools and techniques to predict when we need to work on a system to keep it in good condition. Rather than building power lines the way we've always done it, one of my least favorite expressions, that's how we're going to do it because that's how we've always done it, right? Now, in a lot of places, we're allowed to bury power lines so that we don't have the kinds of incidents that we've seen with, weather events bringing power lines down and crippling the communities that they're supposed to be serving. So as you go through each one of the categories, the 18 categories that we have in the report card, you can think of examples like that in every single category. So finding sustainable solutions to future problems is really how we take our current investments and generate worthy solutions that will last us 50 to 100 years. I grew up in New York City, and when they built the subway system, they said it had a 50-year life. It's now over 100 years. It's still running. I continue to wonder, why there is still concrete on the walls that hasn't fallen on the tracks, but somebody's doing something right that our infrastructure is lasting that long. But its day is coming, as is the case with all of our infrastructure. So today's series of discussions will provide an opportunity to consider how we continue to transform our industry, meet the future demands, and be proactive in delivering an efficient, reliable, and resilient built environment for years to come. Our opening session today, I'm very excited that I have the opportunity to be part of that. It's called Innovating Infrastructure, Leadership, Technology, and Transformation. I appreciate the opportunity to share the stage with a very outstanding leader in civil engineering and infrastructure, who I can already tell we met by phone several times, but first time in person today. But I can already tell from our early conversations that we have a lifetime of friendship ahead of us and working together. So Hala Titus is the North American president for CDM Smith, which provides engineering and construction services in water, environment, transportation, energy, and facilities. So if you'll join me up here, we'll get the conversation started. Thank you. Good morning. That's the level of energy. There you go. All right.
Thank you for driving in the rain. And, you know, some of us go for an hour and a half, as I heard you. So I really appreciate the persistence and the interest, and hopefully we will deliver.
There we go. All righty. So we've tried to, we know we have limited time, so we're going to try our best to hit some really key issues that hopefully will plant some seeds of thought for you as you go back to your day-to-day with maybe a new way of thinking about the future. So you heard me talk about the report card.
So, yeah, thank you. And the report card is an excellent opening remark for us here, because ASCE report card, our infrastructure seat, right, decided 3.7 trillion investment gap. That's the gap between over the next between the 9.1 that is needed to bring infrastructure to good repair rate and the 5.4 trillion that we need. So huge gap. This gap is even more amplified than the 2.1 that was expected 4 years ago, 2021. But what this does, what's different here is, and the topic of our conversation mainly is the convergence of three forces. The funding constraints. We had a great opportunity with the Infrastructure Investment Job Act, you know, that is going to be coming to an end. SRF funding, which is the backbone for our water infrastructure, was threatened last year, but it's continued, thankfully. So infrastructure funding is a constraint. That was a problem. And of course, our everlasting workforce limitation. And we will talk about that.
Absolutely.
The third force is the acceleration of digital technology, in particular AI, and how we can leverage that to overcome, you know, the constraint of the funding as well as the workforce limitation. My lens that I have here is through decades of delivering large infrastructure projects across North America and globally, mainly on water and wastewater projects. I look forward to the conversation. I'd like to share my perspectives and answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As I travel around as president of ASCE, I'm surprised a lot of times to see the differences in how infrastructure is being delivered, both around this country and around the world. So I wonder, from your experience, what do you feel are like the biggest bottlenecks that we have in this country delivering the kind of infrastructure?
Okay, so bottlenecks, I would start from the beginning, which is permitting. I think it's fair to say that permitting is a challenge for us in our industry. When we get a NEPA permit, that can take 2 up to 4 years. We have a project that I will keep unnamed to protect the innocent that we finished design for in 2015, and we hope to get the NTP sometime in May. So, agreed, it's desalination plant, it's coastal commission. There were a lot of things, but that's what permitting is, right? Delays work, and with the delay, of course, comes the cost increase, and we talked about the funding constraint, but mainly also the predictability. So our utilities, our clients, if they don't know exactly how long this will take, they cannot, you know, plan accordingly in terms of the investment, of resource allocation. So the timing and the predictability is a problem. And then add to it the fragmentation. So some of our projects, when we put the permitting list together, we have 15 to 20 agencies that we have to communicate with, right? So and they don't necessarily coordinate with each other or work to the same timeline, and each has its own standards and criteria for decision making and permit issues.
And timelines.
And exactly. So, but I think my solution to that, based on what we have done, projects, is twofold. One is early communication, right? So early communication with all multiple agencies, making sure that we have alignment, we are on the same page of, agreement and understanding, the processes, what the permit agency would like to have, a consistent communication and clear communication. And then also the other thing is, which we will talk about, during the session, is leveraging AI.
Right.
So leveraging AI in terms of, looking at the compliance, requirement, making sure that the permit application is complete. Sometimes during, the project, we get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of comments, thousands of comments back, from building and safety, for example, on construction. And to me, we can leverage AI to make sure that the comments are all answered, not just the ones that we think we should answer, right? And that will shorten the go and back and forth. Right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's a great thing. And then going back to, and we will talk about this, but we asked about challenges, procurement. We have to take a different look on procurement. Instead of focusing on first cost or lowest initial cost, we want to take a look at the life cycle cost and delivery. How can we accelerate delivery leveraging AI?
So with all of those challenges, have you found that there's a particular delivery method that helps us deliver those, get through that process more efficiently?
Yeah. So for me, I think that, what we are seeing across the nation is growing trend to move from traditional design build to alternative delivery.
Right.
And alternative delivery is either progressive design build or CMAR, which is construction management at risk, or some other clients and utilities call it construction management general contractor. And these two are gaining a lot of momentum, especially with the very large projects. And we have project that one particular that we just finished, progressive design build, that's 1.2 billion. We have another one just starting that will be for 2, where we are just the engineer to CMAR. We have another one, again, same order of magnitude, progressive design build, multiple projects I'm seeing progressive design build in the southeast, up north in Oregon. So, and CMAR as well. So I'm seeing a lot of trend in the industry to move this way. The reason is there is a statistic, or there is a study that showed that these projects can cut costs from 10 to 15%. But that really depends. You have to remember, these are statistics, but it will be different from one project to another, depending on the team, on the processes, on the collaboration. But the reason they're gaining momentum is progressive design build really helps with collaboration from the very beginning between the design builder and the owner. And we see one entity that's responsible for the design builder works together. They coordinate with the owner stakeholders, including the operators from day one. So every voice is heard, every input is considered. There's a dynamic cost model that we present at various degrees of design that considers, the owner's needs and wants. And we agree on the facility, on the design criteria, on what the scope, what the facility will look like. So that helps with developing the guaranteed maximum price. So it has the potential to, and has, the opportunity to stay within the design, the budget, the client's budget. The other one is the CMAR, as I've said, and that's when the designer comes on board, first, and then the GC, the general contractor, comes on at 30%. That's also a good model because it affords the general contractor to provide input with constructability reviews and construction sequencing and their perspective to the design team. And the collaboration again between the design team, general contractor, and the owner starts from early on at 30%, incorporating again, of course, stakeholders. First and foremost, the operators' input and vision for the facility and what it should deliver. All this is great, but also leveraging innovation and AI tools in these alternative delivery models is important.
Absolutely.
Because we can leverage this, especially in the pre-construction phase, We can leverage this in terms of cost estimating, quantity takeoffs, QC, construction sequencing, constructability reviews. What this does, it provides level of certainty, higher degree in terms of construction of the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. Also helps in reducing change orders later on. So it provides and yields a more cost-effective and cost-efficient project.
Right. Absolutely. So all of this takes people. Even with AI, we still need people.
Yes,
This-
thank God.
Yeah, really. Yeah, there's maybe some of the tasks that we do as engineers will be a little bit different going forward as we use these tools, but everything still revolves around the workforce. So talk to me a little bit about the gaps that you're seeing and any thoughts you may have on how we should fill those gaps.
So I think, so first the gaps. So the architectural engineering construction industry needs about 500,000 net new hires in 2026 to meet the infrastructure needs that's across.
Right.
And that is a big number. And we are fortunate because our industry, we are still in hiring and need mode, and that will continue even with AI. Use the great word, which is the tasks that our engineers will do will be different, So when we leverage AI tools, instead of repetitive, low impact tasks for our younger engineers, they can focus on more complex, interesting, innovative, tasks. And I'm not saying they will stop doing that. I'm saying that the ratio of 80-20 will flip. And that's really how we decide to retain professionals. Mm-hmm. So that's it's just by the sheer numbers. Also, our industry, our profession, the average of the median, age is 41.
Wow.
We have 25% over 55. 20% will retire by 2030. The young professionals that are coming into our industry is 25 years and younger are less than 9%.
Wow.
So we really need to, and that's why I'm saying, innovation is not a buzzword anymore. It's really a survival necessity to meet all the needs, to meet all the demands, to execute our CIP successfully. We have to innovate, we have to leverage AI, and we have to look for tools that will enable us to amplify the impact of our professions,
right,
not reduce our professions. So to me, it's about leveraging the tools to amplify our impact. And you asked, how do we retain and attract?
Well, yeah, you've addressed that already.
Yeah, but I just want to highlight, to retain and attract talent, all of us, as engineers, we are driven by mission, right? So we'd like to understand that it's a purpose-driven activity. We'd like to communicate that to our hires. Mm-hmm. It's about building a different world. It's about improving the community. It's about supporting, our residents to have PFAS and lead-free water. So they like to know that.
Sure.
And of course, second to that is the career path. Really important for our professionals to know, not just that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that they will be successful, but also we need to invest in their development, right? We need to show them multiple paths to success and, have them, adopt and adapt to AI tools and grow in their careers. So to me, that's very important.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because this past year at ASCE, we completely revamped our workforce and education committees to be in line with those kinds of thought processes and the activities that we need to be doing and the messaging that we need to do. When I was growing up, the only thing you ever heard was you have to be really good in math to be an engineer. You have to be able to learn math to be an engineer. You don't necessarily have to be, innately good at it. If you can learn it. But what message we're landing on as a really key message is, if you like to solve problems, if you want to help people, that's what engineers do. And that message is resonating a lot. And it's been very exciting as I've traveled around the country and how many civil engineering programs are growing so rapidly. They're bursting at the seams because I think a lot of young people have realized not only what a tremendous, exciting field this is, but also the stability, the growth opportunities as professionals in civil engineering. A lot of people leaving computer science and electrical engineering and pivoting to civil. Yeah, so sad for them, happy for us, must say. Yeah. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about financing. Okay. Given you already mentioned, costs are going up. They've ever since COVID, really, we've seen costs do nothing but rise. Every day costs us more money. What are you seeing? What do you think are the ways that public agencies can make decisions, make smart investments in infrastructure?
So, few things. One is data leverage decisions, right? So we want to be data rich and insight rich. We want to make our decisions based on data analytics, not just the aging of the infrastructure, but also the risk-based analysis, right? We want to be in a preventive mode rather than a reactive mode. So all that implies condition assessment, data analytics, and being able to be more proactive. So data is really. Then we have to rethink life cycle costs. On our risk and finance committee, one of our clients actually GM for one of our utilities, and he made an excellent point about being able to look at the life cycle cost and the performance of the facility rather than just the first cost, and that takes a different thinking, the procurement, instead of lowest bid, instead of driven mostly by cost. We need to change our thinking to be driven by performance, by how this facility will perform, by how the life cycle cost of the facility that we are designing and building now will affect the CIP and continued investment for the utility. So that is another option, is to think about the life cycle. Then I talked about delivery models. We can consider that. There's also P3 opportunity, right? So there is, which is more successful on the transportation.
Very much so.
And the water, right? So you can probably talk a lot about that. But adopting maybe or looking into P3 on the water side, maybe something that we can also leverage.
Yeah, and it's surprising that it hasn't taken more hold, because in so many cases, transportation facilities, there are only a small number that generate revenue, bridges, tunnels, but on the water side, there are so many opportunities to recover that investment that I'm so surprised.
You think, right?
Yeah.
So in my career, I was twice engaged in P3, more in consideration, helping owners look at P3 opportunities. And in one of them, it was a design, build, finance, own, and maintain. And after moving with the procurement and investing a lot of this, it was a permit issue because the air quality management district in that
Jurisdiction,
that jurisdiction said that for us to give you a permit, the municipality has to own the equipment. Otherwise, it would have cost the project that was in order at the time, which a couple of $100 million, it would be another $6 million. And at the time, the municipality said, well, that's throwing $6 million away. Why would we want to do that, right? So we had to flip it again to design, build, operate. Another example is, we looked into it, we were moving towards it, but because what you just said, the revenue, when you do the business case, sometimes there is the public acceptance of having a private entity providing drinking water, and the concern that the rates will go up, even if you communicate and convince that that's not really the case, they still have this perception. And that makes some of the board members a little concerned, so they opt to go back to progressive design build
Yeah.
rather than, but it's, yeah. It's
Yeah. But in-
transportation, yeah.
But instead of making that investment, people are buying bottled water, you know,
Yeah.
by the thousands, right?
Exactly.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
And then we have projects for PFAS and microplastics.
Yeah, there you go. So let's talk a little, today is about innovation. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that you've seen or that you've helped develop the culture of innovation in your organization.
So the culture of innovation really starts with motivating,
Mhm.
the team, the professionals to bring ideas forward and to provide a safe space that risk is okay, calculated risk, measured risk is okay. And doing something for the first time is also okay. We actually have a quarterly award that we give to the top 3 ideas.
Oh, okay, nice.
So we encourage our professionals to always submit ideas for us, for innovation to consider. We take AI tools very seriously, so we're always getting a lot of ideas. Actually, faster that we can implement and develop tools for. But that is great. So number 1 is creating that mindset. Number 2, which is very critical, is actually sharing the proof. So when we have an AI tool that is working and yields schedule saving or cost saving, we want to make sure we are sharing this with our team. Because what this does is gets the buy-in, gets the adoption rate faster, right? And similarly with our clients, like people, when they see that there is proof, when this has worked, they are more amenable to implementing it. So I think,
And then your staff is also more excited, other staff is more excited about
Exactly.
perhaps contributing to new innovation.
exactly.
Yeah.
So both, on the front end and the back end, and of course creating the culture of diversity of thought. Like it's okay to have different ideas that not everybody is thinking of. Diversity of thought is really important.
Absolutely.
So, and again, thinking of something for the first time, that is what innovation is. So,
So true, so true. So, looking ahead 10 to 15 years, I know, it's scary, isn't it? Who knows what tomorrow is going to bring, but we're going to think about 10 to 15 years from now.
okay.
So, I'm imagining a truly modern, innovative infrastructure system. What does that look like?
So 15 years. Wow. So I share with you something, just why I say that. A couple of weeks ago, there was the AMWA conference. I don't know if anybody participated, but right. And I was talking to one of the GMs there, and I was making a comment, about, maybe 10 years from now, we have, design that is much of the processes are automated, that of course our engineers will still, see it, we still review it, we will still need to talk to operators and senior designers and young designers to make sure that this, and clients to make sure that this is the right path. But she actually looked at me and she said, "You think 10 years?" And, said, yeah, but she said, "No, I think maybe 5 at the most."
Yeah.
So, the reason I said 10 is because I know how long it takes us to develop ideas. Maybe we're slow. So, but I think that's the reality. And on another webinar that I joined, there was a ASCE conference for webinar, and there was a graph about digital technology evolution. And the tagline at the bottom, digital technology is moving is at a pace that is the fastest we have seen, but yet it will be the slowest that we will ever see. And that to me was an aha moment, like what I'm seeing now, what I think is too fast is not going to be. It's going to be, it's an algorithmic state for the exponential growth of AI digital tools. So having said all that, if I look with that in mind, 15 years from now, I see facilities where assets are self-aware.
Yes.
Where there's sensors in all critical assets. They know the remaining lifetime, right? They're not waiting for a model to be, or somebody to come and
The
condition
pipe knows it's leaking, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with that comes the self-optimization. And maybe that's a dream, but 15 years, I don't know, maybe 20. but self-optimization. So the asset again knows that, hey, maybe I can optimize the energy and chemical. The asset knows that I can adjust the pressure and flow so that the leakage doesn't happen, right? And also the facility, the assets in the treatment plant know how to react to severe weather condition or wildfire or right without manual adjustment. So I'm very optimistic about what 15 years.
But with some human oversight.
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, that goes without saying, like I said, even with the design automation there, and that's part of when I hear that some professionals are worried, well, this will take our jobs away. Like I said, I really think it's an opportunity to amplify the impact of our jobs, and to help us do more with less, which you said in the beginning is what we want, and everybody's expecting that. So I think it's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, and you quoted some statistics earlier in the workforce study that our ASCE task force produced. They were looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics projections, the current population of civil engineers and the projections. And by 2030, it's predicted that we'll only have enough civil engineers to fill 2 out of every 3 jobs. So, AI as a tool is going to help us bridge that gap. So it still requires that we continue to produce a lot of civil engineers, or that gap is going to be even worse.
And accelerate delivery.
Yes.
Look at, like I said in the beginning, we have the IIJA, right? How much have we actually spent and obligated, right? That's delivery will also benefit from the AI tools, so we can accelerate that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next report card, because I think we'll really see the impact of the IIJA, because it only had a couple of years to produce for this one. So we only saw a very small portion of the impact, and yet we still moved the needle. So the next one will be very, very telling. So yeah. Well, any closing remarks?
First of all, thank you again.
Yeah, thanks.
For being here. I want to say that we talked about the forces that are converging, right? We talked about funding constraint, labor force limitation, and AI technology. And we talked about the real question is how do we leverage and how do we use AI for better solution. But all this takes bold leadership, right? And determination. And for all of us, that's actually what I see. It takes all and each one of us to make sure that we're leading our troops, we're leading our teams, we're moving in this direction determinedly and purposefully, and with the end in mind that this is all about delivering success.
Yes. And I think to your earlier point, I think having diverse voices in the conversation helps that along.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Hala. Join me in thanking Hala for a great talk. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. And so now I have the great honor of turning the mic over to Jennifer Todd, who is going to lead us in our next panel discussion. Jennifer. Her mic.
All right, good morning. I've instructed everyone to use their outside voice because these are for decoration here. So So thank you so much for coming to this ASCE event today. We are here to talk about building tomorrow's infrastructure workforce. So I know that is a hot topic. And so I have three amazing panelists here who are going to share their expertise in all of the things. And so let us dive in. My name is Jennifer Todd. I am the executive director of A Greener Tomorrow, and my work centers around workforce innovation and infrastructure, about how people not only get into the industry, but they stay in the industry. And so what I'm working on now is building a infrastructure platform that connects education, it connects training and apprenticeships nationwide so that they can have careers that will last and we can get more people in the industry. And so I want to introduce all three of our panelists that we have today. We have Tom Smith, the Director of Engineering and Construction with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We've got Dana Westgreen from Senior Policy Director for Virginia Works. And we have Martha Ross at the end, Senior Fellow from the Brookings Institute. And so today the conversation really is about what are we doing and how do we get there? How do we make sure that we go from a fragmented industry to aligning our efforts to ensure that we are preparing both today and tomorrow for the future of workforce? I'm going to give each person a chance to introduce themselves and talk about the work that they're doing. And we're going to start with you, Tom. Give us a breakdown about the work that you're doing.
So this is on all the time.
Outside voice.
Okay. Well, it's nice to have a prop though to have in front of you. But anyway, well, good morning, everybody. So thank you for the introduction, Tom Smith. So with the Army Corps of Engineers, I'm the Director of Engineering and Construction. But I think the common theme here today is about the workforce, which I think we all share, whether state, local, private sector. For those who don't have some idea, I'll just briefly comment on what we do in the Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, obviously we are part of the Army, but we have a responsibility for our infrastructure all through the nation. Many of you are familiar with that, what we do at our inland ports, our locks and dams and other public infrastructure. We provide essential services for the military, obviously the Army, Navy, Air Force, and then we also work through the interagency with hospitals for the VA or other interesting projects throughout the nation in our history. So it's really exciting to be here because we have about 34,000 civilians in what we call the Army Corps of Engineers. Sometimes that's actually sometimes an impediment to bringing people on. They think, Army, what does this mean for me? I'm a civilian. 34,000 civilians, and we are a large organization, but nothing compared to the 3.7 trillion that was mentioned earlier. None of us are really big enough to grasp that as a single player. And so be glad to share some thoughts with you about how do we keep a workforce for the nation, right? In the world, really, because of the needs we have. So thanks for the opportunity to say hello.
Thank you. Dana?
Hi, everybody. Pardon me, I have some allergies, so sorry if I sound a little hoarse, but my name is Dana Westgren. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor at Virginia Works, which is Virginia's workforce development agency. I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of folks in the room are not familiar with workforce development policy as an area. We are the best kept secret in government. And what we do is we oversee investments in our workforce. So when you guys are talking about investments in infrastructure, workforce is our infrastructure. We provide the supply for everybody. So what we do at Virginia Works is oversee training opportunities, including registered apprenticeships, which I love us talking about registered apprenticeships at an innovation summit because it's the oldest form of training, but it's really having a rebirth right now. This is a really helpful tool, particularly when we're talking about engineering and construction trades. We also oversee Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act dollars, real wonky, but basically those are job connection opportunities for folks. Like if you lose a job, we help get a new one. We help you get trained to a new one. This is all run really locally. So all of you have local boards in all of your states that oversee this work on the ground. And we urge all of you to work with them, particularly as you're looking to fill those job gaps that you were talking about earlier, which is definitely a scary stat. But I think this is such a good opportunity for us in the workforce space to connect with all of you and make sure that we can fill those gaps and get moving on some of these really important projects. We also work super closely with our economic development colleagues across Virginia. We have 14 local areas. Our local development They have 9 local areas, and so our local boards and our economic development boards are always working together, supporting economic development around key industries, including manufacturing, data centers, cybersecurity, all that good stuff. So excited to dive in a little bit more on the specifics. Thank you for including me today.
Martha.
Thank you. I am with Brookings Metro. Brookings is a think tank. Metro is one of the research programs, and we focus on strategies to help states and regions, places in general, be prosperous and thrive, both the places themselves and the people within them. And my role in that is to look at labor markets and workforce development. So a mix of data, like how are different groups of people doing, how are different places doing, different industries, and also policies and programs to help, you know, make sure there are pathways for workers to get good jobs that meet the regional labor force needs. And as you can imagine, over the past couple of years, I have spent a lot of time on things like IIJA and the Inflation Reduction Act and CHIPS and Science. I mean, these were making massive, massive investments in the built environment that all require workers. And there was a lot of rhetoric that was genuinely meant about tying these investments to career pathways. But the implementation is a whole different story. When you look at IIJA, God help me, I did. It allows and encourages workforce development, but in few instances requires it, and did not give any money to the agencies or the organizations whose job is workforce development. So Department of Labor, community colleges, apprenticeship programs, CTE in high schools, none. I mean, so there was just this tremendous gap and missed opportunity. And it, you know, in theory, this is a solvable problem with coordination and communication and trust building and relationship building, but the organizational inertia is tremendous. Then just to get a little bit more of an on the ground view, I also looked at how IIJA investments landed in a particular region, in this case, the LA region, like the city of LA and LA County and the cities in LA County. God help me again. I looked at a spreadsheet that was then available from build.gov that listed like 60,000 IIJA investments. And when I sorted through them, there were like there were hundreds of investments to LA and LA County, private, public, nonprofit organizations, nearly 6 billion. Almost none of them, from the publicly available information that I could find, incorporated workforce development, which is another, you know, just like following that line of thinking. Like if you have goals, then you need to think about strategy and implementation. Like they don't magically happen.
I'm glad you brought that up, Martha, because that's going to lead me to my first question for you. And that is, we talk about infrastructure and engineering, and we are seeing the billions of dollars that you reference that is going into projects, but those pathways aren't necessarily translating into the people, as you mentioned. So what do you see as the biggest structural gap when it comes to preventing people from entering and staying in these roles you mentioned?
I would put the gaps in 3 buckets that are related. One bucket is that we generally have a bad systems of career navigation for young people in whether they're in K through 12, whether they're in college, whether they're, I don't know, regular adults. If you look at what schools are incentivized for, it's not for career counselors. Like they're incentivized for college enrollment. And when you look at how their guidance counselors are totally overwhelmed with that task, like even the tasks they're incentivized for, they're having a hard time. I'm not dissing K through high schools. They have a really hard job. We ask a lot of them. Another bucket is that there's a lack, related to what I just said, there's a lack of continuity between high school and your next educational step. That process favors people with family resources, whether that's knowledge or money or contacts, to find a school that's affordable and a good fit. And then, or you can face a low-wage labor market, frankly, that offers vanishingly few jobs with internal career ladders. And then within both high school and college, there are exceptions. I'm not only negative. There are not enough connections between school and employers. They don't have enough benchmarks about what are the necessary skills and how to assess those skills and how to have the kind of deep relationships you need to feed people in. That being said, I will say registered apprenticeships are one of the best examples of the opposite of things I have just said. And I think occupations like civil engineers, engineering in general, nursing, some others, do have a much stronger connection between the educational pathway and what is taught in schools and what is needed in the labor market.
Thank you. So Dana, Tom, this question is open to you guys, but what do you think is actually working when it comes to initial interest into turning it into a real career? What have you seen that actually works for people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think the career counselor thing is huge. We have invested in career navigators in Virginia that actually work with underserved populations to ascertain what's available out there and what training they need to get there. But earn and learn is the number one thing to get folks in the room and on the job. Cost of living is so high. We talk about affordability of projects. Affordability in life is really difficult, and cost of education is growing. So we invest in things like registered apprenticeships so folks can get in the door and get a wage as they're learning, and they're learning in the room with an employer. I read a stat a few years ago that basically said the vast majority of individuals expect that they're going to get most of their training on the job, not in their schools. So how do we make sure that the employers are providing continuous training, not just to get you in the door, but incumbent worker training to help folks climb the ladder once they're in the room? That connects folks to your business, that connects folks to the career path, and keeps them engaged throughout their career.
Okay.
Yes. So with regard to new talent, I think, you know, we're part of a we are a large organization inside of a large organization, right? And so you have to meet the individual and keep their excitement, right? Because they are looking, they're perhaps their first experience with the employer, some regular expectation of, you know, compensation that sort of drives everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some of our better programs, we have student intern programs or fellows programs that get them to see multiple aspects of what we do. You know, don't let the excitement wane by the grind of delivery and some of the other challenges we have, because, you know, we're under tremendous pressure to meet the expectations of the public who have a skeptical eye about public infrastructure. And so I think what we do with new talent is and make sure they know they're valued. I mean, I think this is the message for the workforce everywhere, is make sure they're valued. And as came up in the brief discussion before us, that infrastructure matters. They have a career that matters. And so if they can glimpse that while they're also doing the tasks they're doing, you know, they'll be on the path. You know, they'll be on the path to give this opportunity a chance. And then we have to take that, and we'll talk about that more as you lead us through this discussion.
Yeah, good point. I want to go from entry into preparation, because getting people in the door is one thing, but getting them to stay and being able to retain people is another animal in itself. And so we're still largely operating with training systems that were designed for a very different workforce than what we are dealing with today, as you guys kind of alluded to. Dana, how are the training programs evolving to actually build skills that align with today's job market, or is there still a gap?
Well, there's certainly still a gap. Yes, we're working on filling it. Our training programs do not exist in Virginia without employers buy-in first. So the Secretary of Labor always says to us, we are worker focused, but we are employer driven. So we sit with our economic development partners and with our employers to identify what it is they really need. We also have this amazing data team that is consistently analyzing labor market information, tracking what's going to be happening in the next 5-10 years, and thinking about what those gaps may be in terms of employment. We invest a lot in programs that, like I said, employers are asking for. But we don't leave employers to, foot the entire bill. It's really important that I know that this is a partnership opportunity with employers. We have money that you can come to and get from us to help you pay for these training programs. So for instance, we have something called the Hired Fund in Virginia, which is an apprenticeship program or an employer who's interested in training up some new entry-level individuals or, incumbent workers if they want to have climb the ladder and keep engaged. They say to us, hey, we want to apply for this. We say, sure, we've got plenty of apprenticeship money for you, and we'll reimburse up to 80% of training costs for all of those individuals. So that's something that we really think is important to help the employers to feel motivated to engage in that training, because we know the bottom line is really important and it's tight. And so that's a partnership opportunity for us. But on the same side, we're working with priority populations and folks that maybe you all can't reach in the traditional pipelines and helping them to get prepared via pre-apprenticeship programs, soft skills programs, making sure they're ready to walk in the door for these apprenticeship programs or other on-the-job training programs, ready to work. And that's really important for us. So working on those soft skills, discernible skills, technological skills is really, really important.
Thank you. Martha, do you think that there is a pathway for transferable skills, or do you think that we are a little bit too siloed?
Yes, and yes. Can you say what you mean about transferable skills?
Just the transferable skills to the pathways for like non-traditional
Oh, yes. Yeah,
entrance.
There's talent everywhere. I mean, and there are so many people with so much capacity to contribute. And we have built systems that often make it harder than it should be for people to, find meaningful jobs. And I think part of that is that we have, just as a society, overemphasized formal credentials, which can, I am not against expertise, and I'm not against measuring it and documenting it, but I think they are much more of a blunt instrument than we think, and you don't always need a bachelor's degree in order to be able to do the job. And I think we need to think more, employers and schools need to think about how to sort of unpack what is supposed to be in a credential. Like, what are the skills that you are teaching? What are the competencies, and how does that relate to what employers?
Yeah. And so right now we're kind of in a historic moment when it comes to the infrastructure investment. And I want to see for Dana, how do we ensure like the workforce investment like keeps the pace, not just from a funding perspective, but actually when it comes to doing the work and getting the people here?
Yeah, that's a great question. Another plug to work with your local workforce boards or your state workforce board. You can join one even if infrastructure is a really big deal in your communities. We actually have employers that sit on all of our boards to help direct investment and think about how we're continuing to improve those training programs. Going back to what you were saying, I agree totally. I'm thinking about investing more in skills-based training programs and in all of that can be easily pivoted, because the answer is to be nimble. We don't think about workforce training and higher education as being a particularly nimble space, but we know that infrastructure investments, AI, everything's moving kind of at a breakneck speed. And so we are constantly thinking about how to braid funds with things like IIJA and other investments with our boards. And we go to a board and say, hey, y'all have the supply, we have the demand. How do we connect those together? And we can do that. We can braid our funds with pretty much anything. So, but we don't know what folks need unless the employers come and sit with us in the room and have those conversations with us. But we do our best to continue to look at our training providers. So every state has a ton of training providers that provide in classroom training, on the job training with community colleges, but also your small local training centers for things like CDLs or commercial driver's licenses or cosmetology, whatever. We're constantly reviewing those for quality. We're constantly reviewing those to make sure that they're actually responding to occupational need. There's a new program opening up called Workforce Pell that people in the workforce space are thinking about, and this is opening up Pell dollars, higher education Pell dollars for short-term training programs. How do you make sure those short-term training programs are actually responding to industry need? And we're going to be reviewing those annually to make sure that they continue to do so. So If an employer comes to us and says, this is what we need, we can do our best to make sure that we're matching that, but we have to have a dialogue. And like I said, going to your local board first is a great place to start. And they're really easy to find online, or email me and I'll find them for you.
So, Tom, from your perspective, how do partnerships between federal agencies and education and training institutes actually translate into real workforce outcomes?
Yeah, so it's a great discussion about the importance of those relationships, right? Because if you have a dependency on some sort of steady flow of, technical competency or people who aspire to that, you have to have touch points. And so, fortunately for the way we're organized, we have kind of 44 regions. And I would say if you go to any of both the technical leaders in that organization, maybe my counterpart at the regional level or the district level, we would call it, and their HR component, they have an affiliation with one, two, or more of the universities of that area. Because there's still, while there are some who leave cross country to go somewhere, perhaps maybe the really talented or the really adventurous, in so many cases, it's a familiarity with, like I said, the Army Corps of Engineers, with the infrastructure that we're responsible for in a region. And so those relationships, you go to that district and you find the pipeline, and that's a feedback loop too, because those universities, for example, want to be meeting the need of us and others. So they're saying, where are we not making it, or where do you need more? And it allows us, it's probably not as fast as any of us had hoped for in terms of the ability to react, but it does allow kind of a feedback loop. So that's a essential part of how we are able to engage. Now, I also pointed out that we're a big organization inside a big organization. So there are these programs that recruit across websites and other places to just try to attract somebody who is just interested in doing something different. A DoD Fellows program, or we have a Fellows program and some student internship programs. So I think those relationships are essential because they provide a touch of the familiarity with what our needs are to what the capabilities are. So we're going to hopefully keep those going for a long time.
And so we've already established that retention remains a problem. And so a lot of organizations are defaulting to hiring outside of the organization versus internally. So Tom, what do you see the biggest barriers to building and retaining talent internally?
Well, I really appreciate that question, because for those of you who've been watching the federal workplace, there's been a reshaping of it. It's the administration's view of a smaller federal workforce, productive people leveraging technology and innovation. So as you are probably aware, for a sustained period of time, we have been encouraging a reshaping and asking some people voluntarily, at least in the Army Corps of Engineers, voluntarily to leave. And so what you're left with are people who are perhaps unsecure about, is there a path here? And so I think the first thing that I do, and I know that the leaders I work with do when they meet our workforce, is say, we absolutely need you. You're this message that we heard before I talked and this panel talked. There is value in what you're doing. Your work matters. Our work matters. Whether we're building hospitals for the VA or replacing pump stations in an area for flood protection or part of our military operations. And I think that helps them. But I still find, and this will probably continue for a while, an extra demand for leaders to communicate that we actually need you. Don't let the atmospherics pass you to a certain extent, and then you actually have to help them see that it can't just be talk. And we have an internal. We established a kind of an internal marketplace. Got about 18,000 resumes in there to allow ability to move through our organization, kind of a proving out of the need that we have for our people. So, but I think that your point about retention is it's so important to all of us when there's perhaps a view that no future is secure, right? It doesn't matter where you are. It keeps some on a professional edge, in the sense there's maybe a little bit of a healthy edge to wanting to stay at the top of your game. But we absolutely have the demand. We would love to increase our workforce in a sense as we go forward.
Dana, I'm going to swing it over to you, because you had brought up an interesting point during our conversation about HR's role and what you feel that they should be doing. And could you share more about that perspective?
but the HR role, yes, absolutely. So I think something we all need to do better at is figuring out who in the organization to communicate with about what skills are actually needed, and educating our HR folks on non-traditional pathways into the workforce. So by non-traditional, I don't like that term actually. I think that all pathways into the workforce are equal and important, but oftentimes our HR professionals, the first thing they're looking for are those bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, certifications. You need to start thinking from a skills-based perspective. An individual that perhaps has gone through an apprenticeship program in construction may have some on-the-ground experience that I, as someone with a bachelor's degree, don't have. That's a valuable thing to add in. And so we really need to shift the way we're thinking about hiring to look at skills, to look at experience. And sometimes a credential is important. The credentials are very important, but I'm with you, Martha. Like, I just think we need to be broader in the sense that we need to embrace the different skills, the different life experiences that folks have. And giving an individual who doesn't have that college degree an opportunity to get in the door at your organization, talk about retention. That is an individual that will be dedicated to your organization and to their career. And I think that that's something we, not just people in this room, but across all major industries that are looking at gaps, need to consider. Because there are actually enough workers out there. There are. We just have to make sure that they are able to get the training they need and get their foot in the door to prove what good workers they actually are.
Thank you. So we have talked a lot about people, and we're all human here. But there is something that is definitely overlaying the conversation, and that is technology, AI, and automation. And of course, as we will discuss throughout the day, and I'm sure during the course of business, how fast AI is moving. But the real question is that are we keeping up with the demand as people, and are we preparing our people for the future of work and how we are doing business today and plan to do business in the next 10 or 20 years from a national perspective? So I'm going to swing it down to Martha and ask, how do we ensure that we are preparing people for the jobs that are emerging, not just the ones that exist today?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many technologies in addition to AI that are shaping labor markets in our economy. I'm going to focus on AI for the moment. One of the major problems that we have is that there is so much discussion in the abstract about what AI can do, how many jobs it can take over or do part of. But what we have not paid much attention to, enough attention to, is how that technology is going to be used in what? How is it going to be deployed? How is it going to affect work processes? It's hard to think about beyond some important fundamentals about how to prepare people for this technology when we don't know how it's going to be used and for what purposes. And I think a lot of employers are doing their best to figure it out. It feels kind of like an arms race. I'm worried that the focus is going to be on it as a cost-cutting tool. That is going to be a major driver when it can also be used to support productivity and innovation. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, but in a lot of cases, I think the cost cutting will take precedence over that. One of the things that I would love to see that has no hope of happening in the immediate future is something sort of like the universities did with their agricultural extension centers, 100 years ago, to help have people be centers of knowledge and expertise about how a particular industry or a particular technology, and then work with all kinds of companies, especially small to medium-sized ones, about what are best practices in deploying different kinds of technology and being productive and innovative and efficient.
So before we bring it to questions, we have a room full of decision makers that are actually taking notes. And so while we have everyone's attention, I want to just give like one sentence, if you can, before we open up for questions for each of you. What is the one thing that leaders should start doing, and what is the one thing they should stop doing immediately? And I'm going to start with you, Tom, when it comes to what we're doing here and to build a stronger workforce infrastructure.
So, yeah, thanks for the question. A little bit concerned with where to start because it implies like it's cold start, right? That there's no activity.
Warm
So
start.
warm start. So
warm start.
So I think for me, and I have to tell myself this each time they have the opportunity to engage, it is about the affirmation that people are still essential to infrastructure delivery while we're in this, tsunami of technology and AI and which isn't going to go away, right? I think the comments from the previous panel were that we may just be in the slow part of that in terms of the number of activity sets that are out there. And so I think the start is just this determined conviction of reinforcing the value that we have in the people who will be essential to our work. Ultimately, accountability for the engineering profession is with the individual, right? It isn't systemic. I mean, we can look to get reassured. We can speed up our checking processes and some of those things. And so I think to say that what should we start, right?
Yeah. Now, what are you going to stop? What they need to stop?
What am I going to stop? I don't have as good a thought on this one as what will I actually stop.
Well, what's not working?
Yeah, I think that what we have to stop is sort of related is this the idea that some of the challenges are transitory. It's about, always helping people see that there's a dynamic expectation of even in infrastructure. And so if there was ever a thought that it was transitory or that it will settle out, we have to somehow remove our baseline of our thought about the full environment that we're working in. And so perhaps as a leader, then I was in a discussion yesterday about asking one of our technical practices about the future. After they spent some time telling me how they needed more people to do what they do, I said, well, what is the future? Tell me 5 years. And they talked about autonomous, this and that. It's just to help people kind of in their own way bring the future forward, because that was helpful to me. Don't tell them it's going there. Let them identify it, and they will see it because they will. And when they voice it, perhaps better.
Dana, what are we starting? What are we stopping?
Well, this is going to sound super trite, but start with stuff like this. Having these conversations is super important. Getting industry leaders together with education and workforce training providers is key. Because as I've said a couple times, we don't know what we don't know in the workforce space. And y'all don't know what you don't know in the workforce space. So let's all get together and have these conversations. What we have to stop doing is using old education and training paradigms and expect them to continue to work in the modern age. The workforce and education systems need to work together hand in hand with industry to protect our workers and ensure that they have long and prosperous careers with their employers. We want to work together to create pipelines from entry level, from high school, even in middle school. We're doing career exploration so kids can understand what it is that it means to be an engineer. I used to go to engineering camp as a little kid. Didn't work for me, but it works for a lot of folks, right? And they're able to use their hands and think. And so we start there, and we want to build pipelines all the way to a PhD. And that's something that we can do if we stop thinking in the past.
Briefly, Martha, what are we starting and what are we stopping?
What we need to start is employers need to think more strategically about how their workforce helps them meet their business objectives, which is of course trite and everyone says that that's what you're doing, but it's hard to do. And HR departments are frequently much more focused on payroll and compliance, and the urgent overtakes the important. And like having reached some level of middle management myself, I know that it's hard. It's like, why do you want to spend time away from your other tasks to look at job descriptions? Well, maybe it has a requirement in there that's going to bite later down the road. What we need to stop doing is assuming, like when one
party, like a community college or a workforce board or an infrastructure employer. We need to stop coming to conversations assuming that we understand the context and incentives and constraints that the other party has. Like a workforce person may come to an employer running a project and be like, look, if you can tell me what kind of job you're going to have on what time frame, I'm going to be there for you. And they probably will not understand about the permitting delays. They may not understand that a lot of projects, like you don't think of them in terms of FTEs, you think of them in terms of hours, there's sequences of work. So like, there just has to be a lot of trying to understand where the other person is coming from so that you can help each other meet your own organizational needs in the partnership.
All right. I know we have questions, so let's hear it. What do we have?
Hey, thanks so much. Question on the IIJA, you guys mentioned it a number of times, folks not including, like, obviously Congress is writing another highway bill right now. Have you guys engaged on that side? Is Congress listening to you guys at all between 2021 and now with the explosion of AI, right? So that has changed the landscape of course, as we talked about the last hour. Is there a recognition of that by Congress? I think it's a question here. But how are those conversations going if the landscape has to be?
I have some colleagues who could give you a better answer about Congress. I think one of the important issues also to look at though is state and local, because like so much money from IIJA went to state DOTs or water utilities or whatever. And so it's the state and local people who are making the decisions about how to use that money. And Congress sure could provide more guidance on that. But in the absence of that, governors and mayors and county executives can take a leadership role. And it's state and local dollars fund most infrastructure projects. They're in the driver's seat.
We got the workforce. You better make it good. No pressure.
Interrelated. So I just reaction wise from y'all. So I used to run a federal program, and federal mandates did not seem the best way to get to the workforce goals. I do think that state and local would be more effective at determining, because it did seem like a pretty blunt instrument. We were trying to mandate Buy America, Build America, which was awesome. And Good Jobs Initiative, which for us was awesome because we had small communities that couldn't do that. And so what I wonder is mandating the federal money really the best way to do it? Or maybe could we just push the state and local folks who are actually building the projects to do the workforce development themselves? Like, why isn't that?
I mean, what if the feds mandated broad goals and gave some authority and resources to meet those goals instead? Like, you know, there was focus on having every state have an infrastructure coordinator, and it was almost impossible. I could not find that list of who those people were, and that the feds could have said to the states, this is a really important role, and it actually needs to be more than one person. You need to have a team to look across all of your agencies and have some capacity.
And just to piggyback off of that, I'm actually going to take my state hat off and put my previous Fed hat on. I used to be at the Department of Labor. When all the IIJA dollars came out, we were like, we're not anywhere in here, right? And so we started kind of a roadshow, going to all of the states and saying, hey, hi, DOT, all of you folks, like, go sit with your workforce teams. You may not even know they exist. They do. They want to help you. To make the decisions about how they were going to coordinate. And the workforce system itself is pretty unique in that we are very much a state-run, local-run. Like, we get federal dollars and it's piped to us, and we have like 6 requirements on it. And then otherwise we kind of get to think about how we use those dollars to respond to state and local needs. And so
If you actually connect with, again, your local boards or think about the state workforce system, we have way more flexibility and are able to help respond to some of those on the ground needs in a way that I agree. Sometimes these big federal sweeping bills, as an ex-fed, I can still say, they don't always help at the local level and on the ground. So I understand your concern. And I hope that we can continue to build some of that flexibility at the state and local level.
Well, we are unfortunately out of time, so I want to thank Tom Smith, Dana Westgren, and Martha Ross for their time. And please get in their ear because I see other people had questions to talk to them about some of your issues and concerns. I'm going to pass it back over to Marcia, and thank you so much.
That's it.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I have one thing that I would suggest we stop doing. So how many of you have worked with your HR department? You have a job opening, you know, you rely on your HR department to screen potential candidates. And, you know, you heard through the grapevine that there were 250 resumes submitted. HR sent you 2 or 3. And they may or may not be a good fit because they're not doing the work that you're doing. They don't necessarily understand. They understand the rules and regs of HR, but they don't necessarily understand the technical side of things. I was the assistant general manager at the transit agency in Atlanta. And so I did an experiment and I had a position open. I asked HR to send me all the resumes that they guys had. Give me the batch that you think are good candidates and then give me the rest. And what I found was, and this was before AI was a big thing. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago. They had certain keywords in mind. And if those keywords were not in the resume, they went in the discard pile. But they were people who had really great experience that matched my needs. They just didn't have the right thesaurus to pick the right word that the scrubber, because that's what they're using a scrubber, to say, you know, if these words are in the resume, put it on the good pile. So I would love to see that all change. And maybe AI is that kind of tool that can do a better job of understanding what those skills are, what the needs are, and matching the people, whether even, you know, within, and maybe give you the choice. Here are 2 candidates, both have great experience, one with a degree, one without a degree. You know, employer, you decide which one is the right fit for you. So I think there's some interesting things coming that way. Well, now I have the great privilege of introducing our next speaker, John Thomas. John is the Chief Innovation and Performance Officer with the District of Columbia Department of Transportation. Today, he's going to be doing a presentation called How Local Government Can Lead to Spotlight Innovation in Project Delivery. So, John, I welcome you to the floor. Thanks.
Let's see. Good morning. Okay, there it goes. Perfect. Good morning. John Thomas, Chief Innovation Performance Officer. What that is still kind of figuring out, but think of us as a consulting group within our agency that goes out and helps people do their job better. Maybe not change the way they do it, but try to help find work process improvement. I bring technology to them, help them get through the first stages of technology into actually using it. A lot of data work, a lot of kind of root cause analysis, what's actually happening, right? A lot of times we just decide to do things because we decided, hey, that looks like the answer.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you to stand behind?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much.
Yep. I'll stay back here. So I'll go through a few different things. Everything you see in the District of Columbia in the right of way is DDOTs. So we do from backside of one sidewalk across the street to the backside of the other. So trees, street lights, signals, paint, curb, water, everything that happens in the right of way is under our kind of oversight. So utility coordination is a huge one. I caught the tail end of a lot of the last bit. We have worked really hard to try to bring the three big utilities like water, gas, and electric together with us, bringing together four big, large capital improvement budgets is very difficult, right? We're all on separate tasks, answering to different people for different reasons. So getting everyone to align their 6-year plan with our 6-year plan or vice versa is a very difficult task. Our missions are not quite the same always. But what we did is we developed a in-house tool that allows both us and the utility companies to bring their projects onto a GIS map and load them, provide dates as best we can, right? We all know things get pushed and stuff, but just at least provide an outline of what's happening, when it might happen. And then we put our pavement plans and we put a lot of our roadway restoration plans. And then we have deconfliction meetings where we try to work together to say who's going in first, we're going in, do you want to come in after us, vice versa. That's been going on for 3 or 4 years. I would say it's very successful. One of the driving factors was not necessarily just us saving money and saving time, so per se, us walking into a community meeting where we're there and they're there and everyone's just pointing fingers at everybody because the residents are just mad that the road's blocked for another 9 months, right? So we really wanted to be able to go in there in a united front to at least explain we have worked together. We've tried to align where we could. It's not as easy as it looks. So basically, this is what the mess looks like. This is all the work that people have planned at some point in the next 6 years to 10 years. Lead line replacements, things like that. They're on there. Our paving plans, our restoration plans. Obviously, this scaled out view is not necessarily the best way to see it, but that shows you what we're starting with. And during those meetings, we'll go in. This is an example of I think it's a gas project where they're going to abandon 2,000 feet of main and install 205 feet of main, right? So they've got it laid out. They've got it in the map. They've got their dates and times. And then we're going to look at that and decide when we issue permits. This also helps developers, right? If you're going to build a huge condo next or adjacent to this block and you're just about getting your financing and you need to get utilities and then wait, you guys showed up and you're digging our road up for the next like 9 months and I can't get my deliveries to do my base building and all that. Just helps everyone kind of understand what's coming and help everyone kind of save their time and money. In the future, and what we're doing now, one of our key members on our directors team is working with the utilities to come up with MOUs where we can try to speed up or expedite or improve permitting so that we're not just attacking it from the project side, but we're actually attacking it from the permitting side as well, so that they will maybe not get expedited, but it will have clearer understanding of their work, right? A lot of the work is repetitive. So we know you're going to trench X number of feet down a road and replace with water. We know what faults are going to be with electric. So we can kind of create better ways for them to get through the process a lot faster, do reviews, and then do inspections, right? The big one at the end for us is we need you to restore it. Back to that infrastructure question. We need good quality people because we need that restoration to be good, right? We don't need to come back in 3 years and have failing pavements, right? Or trip falls in our sidewalks from other problems. So we need good kind of restoration practices. And that's the focus of these MOUs, is try to expedite, speed up. We want people in and out, right? The residents want us off their block and they want their streets back to normal and they want their house back and stuff. So everything's done to try to kind of get us there once and get us out. Asset management, another big part of my team is trying to wrangle everybody together and really understand asset management from a life cycle standpoint. We are engaging with our budget people all the way to our engineers, all the way to our maintenance people, so that we're all connected to this. We're asking for the right dollars from the mayor to manage the assets we have, right? Most cities, I tell you, almost every city does not have the money they need to actually manage their assets. So they're constantly playing this game of delayed maintenance, right? Or delayed capital improvements to try to make it work. We use LiDAR and cyclomedia to do a lot of our asphalt or our asset management and grabbing our assets throughout in the field. We have a big GIS team and a big data team. Each year we collect this data. We do our pavement asphalt condition assessments. We do sign assessments. We're doing We're working now with ADA on curb ramps and heights of curbs. So everything that basically we can pick up in that capture, we're using somehow to help with our asset management program. This is just an example of what that means. Once we capture it, we bring it into our GIS environment. We have some homemade built-in applications that we use in-house that we made ourselves. But this basically, what you're seeing here is the fare is what Cyclomedia was able to pick up on the sign and provide a reflectivity score and whether that sign is still in good shape. And the triangle is a work order that already exists. So we're trying to line up where we have a poor asset with a work order already in play. So then what we'll do is go to those teams and say, don't look at all those other triangles. They're not important. This is the one you got to go do and try to get their work to be more specific. So getting the data all the way down to the person installing the sign is a lot of work, but it's just getting everyone at the table and kind of having all those conversations. There's the sign. It's the green one on the side. It's hard to see it didn't come out as clear, but it just, the reflectivity has passed. So we're no longer passing the reflectivity score. Signs is a big future problem, right? Autonomous vehicles, everything that's going to be using the curb, that sign has to be in good condition, facing the right way, easily read, reflective at night, right? Reflective during the day. Cameras on a lot of these vehicles. I have the autonomous vehicle group in my team as well. There are challenges in rainy days and weird weather situations, right? So we really have to make sure our signs are in almost perfect condition, and we're not close, right? It's a lot of work. More talk about just safety. So if we're going from LiDAR, same application, but now we're focused on safety. Everything you see on that map is a safety related install. It could be a pylon, a delineator, could be a rubber stopper, could be a raised crosswalk, push button, APS button, anything that's basically installed or put in the right of way to give the ped, the bike, the driver, whoever, right, anybody in the right of way intervention around safety. Tracking all that is a nightmare, right? We put in, if you're from any city, probably you've seen an explosion of bike lanes everywhere, pylons everywhere, paint everywhere, rubber stoppers, concrete stoppers, right? Like we've tried 16 different stoppers out there. No one decided that it would be a good idea to say, oh, let's put those all on a map when we install them. Let's just wait a few years and then say, whoa, how do we fix all this stuff? It's just laying around on our curb. Oh, or we plowed half of it into the snowbank and now we got to find it again, right? So Cyclomedia is a tool that we can use to go around, capture all those assets, create a layer. From there, the work team now, the pylon team is probably the biggest winner here. They know where all these long lines of pylons are when they go out with a truck. They know which ones are there, so they're bringing the white ones, not the yellow ones, right? They know kind of, so it's making their life a lot easier. Before it was just a truck full of stuff, and they hoped that when they got there, they had the right combination of things, right, to fix the problem. Reporting that from a citizen standpoint is also extremely difficult. No one's going to pull over in their car and put in a 311 request because there's a rubber stopper that's turned, right, or a pylon that's knocked over. So this is a great tool for us to capture that. It's so strong that, or good, or technically good that you can, when we do the capture, we can actually get a list of all the pylons that are down versus standing. So right away from the immediate capture, we have like 190 work orders ready to go out the door because that pylon's already laying on the ground. Where we're going with this, we'll hopefully show you in some more slides here as we get going. But these are just some of the things that it can pull. You can see the PED button on the signal. Huge lawsuits going around the country. I don't know if you're like, there's a group that's suing Chicago, New York, and DC for having these buttons not in place and not functioning. I think I can talk about it. Well, if I can't, you didn't hear it. It's a good thing. They're not suing for money. They're suing that we will actually maintain them and install them and keep them operational, right? This is a great asset that people put out and then we never go back, right? And then people are like pushing the button and nothing's happening. The light cycle, cars are just zipping through. So we didn't even have a list of all of them. We were able to extract them all in the LiDAR capture. Now we have them all identified. We can have the sign rated to see if it has good reflectivity. We know now we know where the crews need to go to check them to make sure they're working. It's easier for people to put in requests when they're not working. But these are like, you know, in an urban area, these are critical pieces that helps everyone kind of in their day-to-day work. Cameras. Well, I'd say one caveat with all this, AI is over here. A lot of this, we've been doing this already. It's machine learning, right? It's not AI, it's different. We just now decided to call everything AI, unfortunately. AI will probably come to your Microsoft Office and that world before you have AI doing a lot of stuff over here. You're gonna have machine learning doing most of the stuff that I'm gonna go through next. Excuse me. We have 5 Raven cameras. Raven is a company out of Canada. It does V2X. It does live camera, so I can park a car and turn it into a security camera right on the spot. I can collect and extract assets from the image. So if I send a guy or person out running around, at the end of the day, I can extract potholes, graffiti on bridges. You'll see, I'll show you. It also does telematics. So it does all your speed, harsh braking, captures the video, what happened. If someone gets in an accident, I have a video of it. I'm the fleet manager as well. I got many hats. So we are piloted these for 75 days to do a value kind of proposition. We have 5. What did we accomplish? If we had 100, what would we accomplish? If we had 200, what would we accomplish? So we can go back to our budget people and try to walk them through. And I see this stuff, or we see this stuff in our group as force multipliers, like not getting rid of staff, right? We're trying to take the existing staff we have and double or triple what they're doing, right? If I'm going out to fix a bunch of pylons, why not capture everything I drove past and create pothole work orders for the other team that's filling potholes from the other day, right? So we're not saying we don't need you to fill, we don't need you anymore. We just need you to add this to your work process. So we've had these 5 cameras for a month and a half, maybe 2 months. This is just a small snippet of where we've covered. We've almost covered 3/4 of the district already in 3 weeks with 5 cameras. So it gives you kind of idea if we had 100, like we might be bringing back a refresh of the district once every 2 weeks, possibly, right? Maybe you get it down to where you're doing it every week. It's a hard one to see, and I can't move. I like to move around, but in the bottom left, you can see a little bit the concrete asphalt. That's a pothole detection. And it's hard to see a little bit, but I have a screen. We'll go through a screenshot of some of those detections. This is where you can, so we're using a large language model to type in road cracking high. And what it's doing is then using that language to go back to the imagery and pull out where it's seeing that phenomenon happen, right? So the large language model is just using the text to do the interpretation. The image interpretation and detection is happening kind of elsewhere, and then we're marrying the two together. Ultimately, what that'll do, we've already got it's moved into GIS, so now it's a layer that I see every 10 minutes live from a drive. So like if I wanted to, I could go to the camera now, we could see a pothole from this morning. Next is we'll move it from GIS into CityWorks, which is our work management system, and we'll create automatic work orders that'll go right into the system. Then we'll have 311 connect to that and say, oh, you already have a work order for a pothole, a new call came in for it. We'll connect those two. The workforce now just focuses on doing the work. They don't have to worry about all of the kind of community relations that goes around. If you're an asphalt worker, you want to be safe in the street dealing with what you're doing. We don't need you to take photos and text people that you filled a pothole. This is a stop sign detection. So just that language model saying stop sign, it's searching all the detections and pulling out just the stop signs, which are critical. We have a 24-hour replacement. If stop sign's down, we put it up in 24 hours because it's like the most critical vulnerable user issue we have in the city. Other things that might be important to non-urban areas. It's very important to urban areas as well, but graffiti on bridge. So using a large language model again, graffiti on bridge, it's going through all the image detections, finds it. Here's a bridge. Oh yeah, on the bridge, there's graffiti in the bottom left-hand corner. That's a really difficult one for someone to put in a requisition. And do we want, or a request? And do we want staff just driving around looking for graffiti, right? No, if they're on their way to fill a pothole and they happen to capture this, that's great. One that might be great for everybody, work zone with person. So we're able to type in work zone or work zone with person, and we can pull up the various work zones that a driver went through. Obviously a work zone with a person is more active, right? There's probably stopping and starting going on. General work zone might not be the same. Overhead sign detection. We don't have a lot of highway here, but that might be important in some people. So this was a quick, hopefully you can see it. These are all the detections that we can pull out from the images, right? So these are the ways that they got classified. We're working on more and more, right, and better, or finding ways to work with Raven to kind of break those down into smaller bits and parts. But for the most part, those are really kind of the top 20, and then you can we're working on doing combinations, right? So maybe I want to see traffic congestion with a police vehicle, right? So maybe I pull up where there was a previous incident earlier in the day. Maybe someone's complaining to the mayor that traffic was so bad today. What's going on? You guys suck, right? Like, can you figure it out? And we find out that, hey, there was an accident or something was going on. Another one we're working with is Blinksy. Blinksy uses, so in the Raven model, I'll go through the 3 different models quickly. Cyclomedia is we're actually saying you drive our entire city and capture it in LiDAR and bring it back to us as a complete set. The Raven camera goes on our DDOT vehicles and we go capture it every time we're driving. Blinksy does crowdsourced cameras, so they're getting camera footage from other users and then bringing in together, and then we're asking for certain detections. So in this case, it's hard to see, but this is a utility detection. There's a dark kind of asphalt patch in the center. One that we just started with them, we just got a PO with them. We want to do crosswalk condition detection. So we want to know where we have a crosswalk that doesn't have full paint, right? Another critical vulnerable issue, user issue. We have enough cars driving around with crowdsourced cameras. We're hoping we can extract any crosswalk that doesn't have 100% paint, right? So that camera is going to make the decision whether that's fully painted, partially painted, and then give us those detections of anything that's not 100%. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Good. Okay. Keep going. All right. Drones, robots, and the AVs. I'll go quick. We have a drone program. Again, we're doing similar functionality as the camera technology, really focused on bridges and helping our engineers. So our engineers are standing over our drone operators and they're watching as we fly through the girders of the bridge. And when if they see something, we stop, we'll zoom in closer and they'll look for rust pockets. They'll look for other defects. If you've ever seen the bridge truck, right, it's got like 6 arms and swings around the bridge and has to go back underneath. That thing creeps along the bridge. We close traffic for 6 or 7 hours. A lot of that's night work. We can collect all that, create a digital twin, do it again really fast and give them back. And then when they find a spot they really want to see, we can bring that truck just to that spot and do that inspection, right? As opposed to just creeping across the entire bridge. In DC though, drones are difficult. We have an airport, we have somebody down the street that's important. And so we can't fly a lot. We have to go through a lot of hoops. Other states, you should get into drones. It's like the best tool for workforce kind of multiplication. So bridge inspections, we're doing stream restoration, water, really using them to areas where it's difficult to get to with people. There's a recent one, we're doing a deck over on a bridge across to Virginia. And we've been flying it every couple weeks just to do a capture of the condition of the construction site because it's so big. It's really hard to see it, but if we visualize it and our chief engineer gets to see it from an aerial view, he can kind of see where things are moving, not moving, where they're storing the materials, their trucks. It's helping our claims people. We have an accident regarding this, right? We have video footage now of how we had set up things. Last couple ones quickly. We're also working with robotic companies where they're trying to deliver food, and that's great. We don't really care. We will give them a permit to be in our sidewalk, but when you're doing our sidewalk, we want you to do a sidewalk condition assessment. So they're using LiDAR on the robot as they roll across the sidewalk, and they're giving us a condition assessment of that sidewalk. This is just some of the quick, we haven't really got this locked in yet, but this is some of the stuff that they can see. And you can see the trip hazard in the middle there, and then they can look at various issues in the sidewalk, give it a rating. What we need is quick turnaround. So we want to be able to like maybe send a robot into an area, localized area, do a full scan, and either like the next day or the day after, give the team, here's all the cracks and crevices and the problems and trip falls. Creating a inventory of sidewalks today and giving it to them in a year doesn't really help them, right? So we need it to be real fast. the future, maybe, right? AVs, they map really intently. So we're doing a lot of work with Waymo in town and Zoox. We'll never probably get that data, but that would be the holy grail because they map like down to the millimeter, right? And if they could give that back to us or share it, or I don't know how that would work, but Uber's never done it. But that would be great data to get on a regular basis, right? They're collecting it. Maybe someday they'll wake up and realize that's another business revenue for them to sell back to cities. But that would be kind of the creme de la creme data because it would just be their tolerances are so high, right? Or low, which we are looking at. All right, that's it. Hopefully I'll have time for questions if you have any.
One question.
One question. Okay. Make it a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can share it. Happy to reach out.
Eva, Eva's got a question.
Yeah.
Fantastic presentation. Congratulations for all that work, especially working with private companies like Data. Just wondering, in all of those arrangements with private companies, they do have it rights to any.
Yeah, so like the cycle media, we own it. We own the LiDAR point cloud as well.
Wow.
Back to us, right? So we're now working on handling that file. Again, it's the first time in a long time in a while we've had active physical handover of data. So we're actually looking at deploying our own vehicles. Maybe we've been toying around with that for probably 5 years. I think if I was catch up where you guys were on the previous panel, workforce development, the processing of this data is where cities and states will not make it, right? So I have 300 vehicles in my fleet. I can put a LiDAR camera on it and a forward camera. I can make it a vehicle by next week, probably $50,000. I have tons of drivers, but when I get that data, I know where to go. I don't have compute power, right? So I have to go to a company and say process that for bring it back.
Or whether we could buy it.
Yeah, they had a business need for it, but I think that model is where a lot of states are going, is collecting themselves, processing with a vendor, and bring the data back that you're collecting on your time, on your cycle. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity in that data space for the next 5 years.
One of the quick questions: are you working on any world models? You're in student space.
I just left a meeting this morning where we talked about, so we have the baseball stadium and how do we feel our soccer stadium like nearby. If they're getting Washington standards back, so we're heavily involved in that build out. We see those 3D models or digital twins really super helpful for probably too late almost, well maybe not for us, but it would be great to have it during the construction cycle as well, but also during events, right, and learning about it. So we are figuring out what that would look like to create a of the stadium and this neighborhood section, right?
That data is going to be very valuable.
Yeah.
Please join me in thanking John. Now I have the privilege of turning the program over to Carol Haddock, who is the president-elect of ASCE.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Carol Haddock. I'm going to get my my panel up here to join us. I reminded everybody to use their outdoor voices so that everybody in the room can hear. But it is truly my honor to host this discussion this morning on solutions advancing water quality and efficiency. And I appreciate our distinguished panel up here. This is old and new friends to talk about this. And to introduce everybody, at the far end, we have Renee Willett, Senior Director with Utility Strategy and Enterprise Solutions with Xylem. We have right next to me Dr. Anna Pridmore, the Senior Vice President, Strategic Market Development for Structural Technologies. And in the middle, we have Alan Wong, the Chief Engineer for WSSC. And I'm just going to jump right in because I want to use all our time to answer questions. So first off, water providers are grappling with a host of issues from expansion and maintenance of existing systems to emerging contaminants, especially PFAS, and shortages of trained professionals. From your perspectives, what challenges are most prevalent, though they are solvable with the right approaches?
I can start.
Let's start down there, Renee.
Caveat it all with, I'm 3 months old at Xylem, everybody. So I've been in the position for 3 months. I'm thrilled to be a part of this team.
Previously, I did work in utility management. So I have my old Hachette water bottle. And then spent some time with Stantec and my US Water Alliance. So I think what I'd love to just kick us off with is,
For the online
oh,
folks.
right. Hello, online folks. I think Hala did a really nice job framing it up initially. You know, I think it's the challenges, some of the challenges that we're seeing right now, they have been foundational to our sector for a while. You know, we have aging infrastructure, we have structural unaffordability, I think, in communities across this country. We have emerging contaminants. We had those 10 years ago, right? But now it's new. Now it's PFAS, and now we're looking at microplastics. And I think the overlay, that's what's happening now, is a shift where we're seeing the fourth industrial revolution, is what my colleagues at Xylem often talk about, with AI, new demands on our aging and failing infrastructures, oftentimes across the country. And so we're in a new era. We're in a new era where I think there's a new sense of urgency. And a couple solutions I'll highlight, and then I'll pass it on to you, Alan. I think there's low-hanging fruit that we need to pay attention to. One of those low-hanging fruit is non-revenue water. I think that is a very solvable problem both in water scarce regions and water rich regions. Water reuse is an opportunity that can solve a lot of problems out west, but also we're seeing innovations in this area right now. DC Water is launching a demonstration project, which is fantastic. And lastly, I'll just throw out digital water management is becoming more and more accessible to utilities of all sizes. And I think what we're seeing at Xylem with the View team that we have is that it doesn't matter what you have right now, what systems you have. We can build a smart engine for water management that can tie into any existing platforms or systems. So it's going to speed up. I'll offer that. Over to you, Alan.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that I have 3 more months over you. I've been with WSSC for 6 months, started in September. And just to give a little context in terms of WSSC, we provide water and wastewater to both Darby County and Prince George's County. We serve almost 2 million people. We have 19,000 employees. And we have 6,000 miles approximately of water mains and 6,000 miles of sewer mains. So that's a lot of infrastructure spread out over a large area. Our fiscal budget for FY27, we just submitted, was $1.3 billion for this year. In our 6-year CIP for that, 6-year CIP, $7 billion. So we have some major financial programs mainly focused on capital. So I want to give a little background on a project that's very ancient at WSSC, but it really, I think, fits into the discussion that we started, and I think Renee has probably some insight into this project also. So the 2 main challenges that we see in facing, one is the technology transformation that you've heard about so much this morning, and also upskilling of our workforce. Why do I say upskilling? It's because our budgets are not allowed to add staff. So we have to do more with less, like we talked about. And the only way we're going to do that is upskill our employees. So technology transformation has to be embraced and led from the very top of the organization. Otherwise it won't. And then upskilling the workforce needs to be what I describe as operationalized. It has to be institutionalized in the organization. So that upskilled workforce can take advantage of the technology and can therefore do more with less. So I'll give you one historic example. We avoided $120 million by upskilling and transforming technology that we use to manage our 145 miles of 36-inch and larger pre-stressed concrete solar pipe, which is PCCP. And these pipes are held by strands of wire that's wrapped around the pipe, every millimeter of the pipe. And these pipes are so large and there's so much pressure going through them all the time, they're subject to fatigue. And the first thing that goes are those strands. So these are buried in the ground. So how are we going to monitor and manage these systems? The first pipe was put in 2045.
1945.
1945.
Our first break occurred in 1970. And in December of 2022, we had a catastrophic break on River Road near the Beltway. And it required Coast Guard helicopters to rescue stranded personnel in the automobiles. So that was a warning sign that we better start finding a way to monitor these pipes somehow with technology. And so we researched and we installed what's called acoustic fiber optics on the 135 miles of these large diameter sewer mains, that's water mains. And we were able to, by audio, understand when these strands broke, the sound was captured, and one strand is not going to be an issue, but 4, 5, 10, 15 in the same area, that's a major telltale. And we went to those locations, excavated the pipe, and we repaired it. So since 1945, we've had 61 major breaks in the system. But since we put in the monitoring system, we've only had 3. And so each break costs about $2 million to repair. And so we've avoided 60 of these breaks in the system since we put the system in, which equates to 60 times 2 million, 120. So that's an example of how not only we can do more with less with technology and upskilling our workforce, but we can also reduce our operating budgets, which allows us to keep our rates as low as possible. And so that's the main focus is besides providing water quality to our customers, we have to understand that they have a limited amount of affordability to absorb the rate increase. So this is something that I think is a good example of technology and upskilling the workforce.
So Alan, you saved 120 million. How much did that system cost you? I'm guessing it was well less than 10 million, probably a whole lot less than that.
Well less, and we had a partnership because the firm that now owns technology design, but the firm previously, what we did was to, at scale, prove at a major water utility, a major technology enhancement that the whole nation can observe. It's beneficial to the private sector without a question, but for WSSC, we've been able to advance our asset management programs, and basically, I'd say it's probably less than $10 million over the course of the program.
Fantastic. Anna?
Alan, I really appreciate and applaud WSSC for focusing on that proactive asset management, that wake-up call with River Road ironically becoming a river, which is a big challenge. You definitely don't want that. So instead, moving forward to be able to more effectively use dollars. Every time I open the infrastructure report card, it's shocking to me about the infrastructure gap that we have. Just in the water, wastewater, stormwater sector, over $1.6 trillion over the next 10 years that are needed. And it's nearly $1 trillion worth of gap. It's the largest gap percentage-wise of any of the different sectors. And the only way to close that gap is through looking at innovative approaches, because we need to close the gap to get closer to actually funding our water utility programs at the actual cost of the water that's being used. But we can't pass that all on to the ratepayers because we have an affordability crisis. So the only way to do that is to look at strategic asset management, which Alan gave a great example of that, of how to address non-revenue water, to address trying to get to repairs before it becomes a catastrophic failure, which are a great approach to really address our challenges.
So, Alan, you actually kind of in a large degree answered my second question. Utilities cannot operate in a silo to achieve results meeting consumer and business demands. Success greatly depends on partnerships to drive solutions and improve service nationally. So you've given us a really good example of that. How has collaboration made a difference in your work, and how can partners drive change for more efficient, reliable water? So I'm actually going to start over here with Anna, but I suspect we're going to talk around Alan's example.
I love that. A key part when I hear the word collaboration is it really drives towards enhancing communication and getting all the parties to the table. And I appreciate Hala's discussion earlier this morning about the use of collaborative delivery. There's some great organizations that are really focused on driving that collaborative delivery across the industry. One great organization, Design Build Institute of America, that's really focused in on the use of design build done right practices. There's also Water Collaborative Delivery Association that's working closely to drive that message home as well. The reason these are important is because, as discussed earlier by Hala, there's not enough money to go around. We have to figure out how to do the projects more efficiently. And one of the great ways to do that is have everybody figure out how we can collaborate more effectively. By just enhancing the ability to have greater trust within the teams, it speeds up the process, moves things forward a lot more effectively. Alan?
I'll just add in terms of the partnerships. I'm going to go to the topic of federal leadership that's important. We are now in a different paradigm in terms of energy efficiency and climate change concerns. But the ASCE 10 years ago started focusing on climate change. And when you have the federal, state, and local policies aligned, with agencies like WSSC, you can accomplish a lot. And again, the community benefits from that. So over the last 10 years, WSSC has been utilizing renewable energy to the point where we now are utilizing 70% of our energy that's used to run our facilities comes from renewable energy, solar, hydro, wind, and where we believe that we'll be on track, even with kind of the change in the interest in climate change and those types of concerns that we've had for many years. I think we are going to be able to be net zero, and I bring that up because I use the word policy, and it's the policy of WSSC that we continue to strive towards zero energy. And so, again, that takes leadership. I think Howard mentioned that in her discussion. And without leadership, all the great ideas and tools and software and technology, it doesn't mean anything. So it comes down to the human factor, and that's leadership. So as we look at our organizations, we need to look at ourselves, and we need to ensure that every 5 years, we assure ourselves that we have the right leadership in place, we're getting the leadership and direction, and we're getting that alignment, that vertical alignment from local government all the way up to the federal.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate the question on partnerships. I think for me, I feel like I'm a little bit of a unique animal in the water space. My first job in water, I'm not a civil engineer by training. My first job in water was around partnerships with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. I was hired in to form partnerships with community and elected officials around our capital project. So my orientation when I think about water investment or technology or operations is all about how are we leveraging multiple lanes of expertise to get to a shared goal. At the U.S. Water Alliance, where I was right before here, we saw an increase in the sector in the desire to form cross-sector partnerships. I think at that association alone, our membership grew by 20% over 5 years. The Water Equity Network, which centers around utility and community partnerships, more than doubled in size while I was there. So I think there's an energy around partnerships. What excites me now at Xylem, and actually speaking of innovation and partnerships, is we have an incredible team that I'm learning more and more about called Xylem Innovation Labs, which what their whole charge is, Xylem is a global technology and solutions provider. Globally, they're scanning the marketplace for what are the latest technologies, what are the newest innovations that are happening across the world, and then how can we elevate the most promising of those technologies, and then put them through a rigorous program at Xylem called the Accelerator Program, where we're actually pressure testing and market testing what can actually scale across the water sector. And then we seek to bring them through our business segments, right? So we have a whole segment dedicated to water treatment, water transportation, digital water solutions. And so what Xylem is trying to do is take out the risk for utility partners and our public sector partners at that time So then when someone wants to pilot a new technology, the utility doesn't have to take that risk because Island can take that risk. So that's an interesting way that they're thinking about, that we are thinking about innovating, de-risking and innovation with partnerships, ideally to get to scale, right? Because that's, I think scaling solutions is our challenge.
That's an amazing conversation example, because really, you know, that public and private sector cooperation, it remains essential to ensuring that our water systems have the resources and policies aligned to address economic, community, and environmental needs. And when we talk about that, you know, you talked about saving $120 million for the utility. That is a significant business benefit, but you also have potentially avoided 60 disruptions to daily life. You know, and so we need to think about these things, not just in the business case, but also in the community case. So what are the barriers to better coordination between public and private stakeholders? And how can policy changes lead to these improved outcomes, both in the water sector and in the communities? And I'm gonna clump onto this one and say, we tend to talk about water, we tend to talk about wastewater, and we tend to talk about stormwater. And how can we bring those together in these conversations?
I think one of the big barriers comes down to communication. And as much as there's been a tremendous amount of work towards trying to break down the silos, but we still, within our overall organization, have a tremendous series of silos. Hala focused on earlier about the permitting process, which can be a huge challenge to move forward projects effectively. Permitting serves an extremely important role to make sure that projects are done effectively and that all the implications of a project are considered. However, figuring out ways to be able to streamline the process and get the right stakeholders to the table, focusing more on over-the-shoulder reviews rather than sending things over the fence and then waiting sometimes several years for the response to come back.
Or to another planet.
Exactly. Right. And beyond that, also figuring out just interagency coordination, which can be a big challenge as well. I've worked very closely with a lot of the local utilities, had I would call it a great success example last year, where there was unfortunately a catastrophic failure that happened on an asset that was jointly owned by WSSC and DC Water. But what I took away from that as a major positive was, in that emergency situation, all the right stakeholders came to the table and we were able to accelerate moving forward. So all the barriers that can happen on a long plan project went out the window, got everyone in the room, and we were able to move forward very effectively. WSSC's general manager was down on the job site, part of the emergency preparedness team, along with DC Water senior leadership. And so we were able to avoid having major sewage overflows because all the right communication was taking place to move forward that conversation effectively. I would love to figure out how we have that level of really effective communication on projects that are not just emergencies, but how do we do that on more planned projects to accelerate how we all collaborate?
And how do we have the media recognize the amazing collaboration that happened, as opposed to the
Exactly. A lot of the attention happens when something goes wrong, but when it's a good catch and hey, guess what? We didn't discharge millions and millions of gallons into the river in that case. We were able to catch it before that happened. Doesn't get nearly the same attention as when something in a different situation happens.
You use the key word planning.
Yeah.
Communication is an outward facing process between the parties, but unless you plan that outward facing process, as well as we've talked about AI today and machine learning and large language models already. I mean, it's the problem's waiting to be solved by bringing in AI so that we can, when these issues come up on our emails or however that information is teleported out there, we have systems in the planning department and the permitting department and the county executive's office that capture that information, the same information, exactly at the same time. So everybody's informed in terms of what the issues are, what the concerns are. And then we can put those plans in place and address the issues a lot more efficiently. So what we're trying to do is bring in some of that technology into WSSC. So I don't get 6 calls as chief engineer from 6 different departments telling me during the day something needs my attention. Okay, there's a key word that comes across my email, and I automatically get beat or whatever you want to call it, get notified, and then that I keep on getting reminded every day. Okay, this is a major issue. These needs to be attended to, and then I have a list of staff and resources that are categorized by issue type, and so they automatically get contacted by this type of technology, and then I can follow up with them and vice versa. So again, it's planning. It's one-on-one. We just have to bring the technology into the planning and get our organizations that we're working with agreeing together to implement something like that.
Yeah. And I'll just build off of what you said. I think you're right. I think it's planning. I think it's communication. And ultimately, I do think it comes back to capacity on both sides, on every side of the partnership. Do you have the right capacity, which can either be staffing capacity or resources to support staffing, time to put into the partnership? Because I think that, every partnership requires effort. It's like dating is fun, marriage is hard, right? Like it's like if you're gonna try to, have a long-term partnership that no one wants to end in divorce, right? I mean, you have to put in time together. You can't just be running in your lane and someone else is running in their lane and think it's gonna work. So I think that those resourcing that both on the public side and on the private side is important. And I also would say that oftentimes in an engineering heavy industry, that skill set can be not invested in, right? Or lost, or just assumed that, oh yeah, well, it will work out. But it actually, you need to invest in it.
To build on what you're saying, I think what's really important as we're shifting the approach towards these long-term marriages, when it comes to these key relationships to move things forward, it's also about empowering people to make decisions without having to go through rounds upon rounds upon rounds that can be a major challenge towards forward progress. So there's the issue of analysis paralysis, where the information just loops upon loops upon loops. How do we get out of that mode and empower more effective decision making?
Mm-hmm. So I actually wrote down a quote earlier today. We let the urgent get in the way of the important. And that just fits the conversation we're having right now. And how do we build those long-term partnerships and that long-term collaboration when we're all focused on the urgent today, but we all know that it's important that we have these collaborations and partnerships, and that we align our strategies and align those things. So I've got one last question, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. The water sector has faced immense pressures, though, as we've discussed today, there are many changes underway to make the systems more accessible, more resilient, and more efficient. What major innovations will be expanded in the coming years, and how will systems adapt for enhanced results? And when I was public works director, I used to challenge people all the time, because everybody has an iPhone that's probably not more than 3 years old, and it has all the newest tools and all the newest things. And I was like, and that traffic signal that you drive through every day was put in 27 years ago. Right. None of you use technology that's that old. Yet our average infrastructure that supports our communities is way older than that. So what I'm going to challenge y'all to what technologies and what innovations are going to expand in the coming years, and how will those systems adapt for enhanced results, and challenge with the lens of bringing our infrastructure with us as we do that.
So I want to build on some things that were said earlier this morning, which is about one of the biggest challenges that we're having is workforce challenges. We are not having nearly enough talent that's coming into our industry. And in part, we need to work on a mindset shift. We are great at solving technical challenges. We struggle when it comes to solving communication challenges and coordination challenges and collaboration challenges. So our world is constantly getting more complex, and we need to figure out how to adapt to rise to the challenge of meeting this complexity. Part of that process is working beyond just technical education on training our workforce as well when it comes to leadership and collaboration, and ways in terms of how to better communicate as leaders. There's some great leadership training in the industry. DBIA just recently put out Collaborative Delivery Leadership Academy, which is a series of leadership-focused courses ASCE also has some great leadership opportunities for education as well. So I would say the biggest opportunity is to shift towards more of a mindset shift to allow us to tackle these challenges.
And I'll just add that the technology is there, it's available. The challenge for any organization is to be intentional and to drive that intentional focus on technology transformation throughout the whole organization. So again, it goes back to my initial comment about leadership, setting the stage, setting the policies, and then having some accountability. So it's old-fashioned management, right? It's accountability, it's having a plan, it's being intentional. And then the other suggestion that I would have from our experience is you can identify something that would be helpful in a project technically, and it could be a project, let's say, tool. But the next step would be, okay, how do we make this programmatic across the organization? How can we apply this tool to more than one application? And in order to do that, you have to empower and give your staff the time to think and to be creative. In most of our organizations, the whole day is filled with busy work, day-to-day work that has to be done, so our enterprises stay in shape. But there needs to be this additional time and desire from our staff to be able to use to be creative. So I'm thinking about kindergarten. You have the little kids get around a table and just give them a problem challenge, and they just spend an hour, and they're more than likely to come up with some great ideas. Yeah. So that's my suggestion.
I love it.
I love it too. I think that innovation time and that brain space is so important. I guess I'll take it in a little different direction, since I do agree with you that I think we have a lot of the tools that we need. It's just a matter of deploying them. But one thing that I think I'd be hoping for and hoping that we can all create together in the next 10 years is what are the new ways we can fund and finance water in this country? I mean, I think that we've been having similar conversations about water affordability for so long. I think that ASCE, the Value of Water campaign, so many good partners are thinking about this. But I do think that we need to start to learn from transportation, start to learn from other sectors about what's working out there. Learn from private sector partners. Get creative here, because I think that with more resources into our systems, time can form, right? You can have more capacity in your staff. You can kind of get a little bit more creative there. So I'll be thinking about that and looking at that. I do think regional models for water management will become more and more prevalent. I do think, as I mentioned earlier, water reuse is just going to be a game changer. Shout out to the Water Reuse Association for doing some fabulous programming on that. If you guys haven't checked out that association, they're doing some great stuff. And the energy around water reuse is just palpable. I was at the conference and I was like, wow, look at how happy everyone is. And someone said, they're happy because they know this is the future. I was like, wow, interesting. And I think that's onto something.
So
I'll just add this. Sorry.
No.
On top of what you've said already, the Water Environment Research Foundation. Think about what they have done over the last 15 years in terms of the technology advancements in our field, and they're self-sustaining, and we just need more of those types of organizations to
drive innovation.
To come on board. That's true.
Love it.
Well, so and I'm going to ask if there are any questions from the audience, but one of the challenges as leaders in this space is that we were all trained a certain way to solve problems. And it's hard for us to get out of our own way and allow people that weren't trained the same way we're trained to be part of our solutions. And so I'm just going to ask if each of you could just throw a thought out there on how we can be leaders in this space of allowing non-traditional thought processes to get us to new solutions. And then I'm going to turn to y'all and ask if you have any questions. They weren't prepared for this one, so this one's completely off the cuff.
So I really appreciated during the workforce development discussion about looking at translatable skills And one of the things when I'm hiring that I look for is what have you done that's really hard and that challenged you? And when did you fail and what did you learn from it? So asking questions that are not just, hey, tell me about this specific job, but how did you tackle something really complex? And then also giving additional consideration to folks that have taken stepped out on a limb. So some of the outstanding employees that I have taken opportunities in their lives to do something different. They took a year, went down to Panama, they hiked the Appalachian Trail. And I put that above just the traditional, quote unquote, 4-letter word from a skill set standpoint. So having the ability to work in a dynamic environment needs to be prioritized because we need people who can work in this challenging dynamic environment.
So a good example of that is getting to know your resources and staff. One of the things I've been doing is having like table talk sessions with some of my younger staff. So I met the other day with a young lady who has a master's degree in forensic engineering, and she is in our asset management program, and she's brilliant, and she's always working with these complicated mathematical formulas and all that. And I said, well, what do you have any other interest besides that? She says, no, I love what I'm doing. I'm giving these papers. I love what I'm doing. I said, well, let me tell you what we're working on, what I'm working on. I'm working on building a program management team for some major programmatic efforts in WSSC that will last 10, 15, 20 years each. And she said, oh, tell me a little bit more about that. And so I gave her some more information. All of a sudden she says, I might be interested in looking into program management.
Yeah.
And what she has is the critical skills in terms of problem solving, and she's meticulous, and obviously she's fairly young and has a lot of career ahead of her. And so this is I guess what I'm saying is we need to get to know our resources better, and they need to get to know what our needs are in the organization. And then I think we're going to identify some great candidates.
That translatable skill sets, because they may not even know the opportunities exist until you provide that door. And we need to more proactively open the door and allow others to help step through with them. Love it.
2 quick thoughts. One, your story is about listening, right? You listened to her, you asked questions. And so I think as leaders, 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Listen, the more we could listen. And then the other thing I'll just throw out there, I'm a big sporty spice. I played basketball all through college, loved it. But one thing my coach said that I always think about, and it's a common saying, but it's amazing what can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. And I think we're all operating in a scenario, whether you're at the private sector or the public sector, where there's pressure to get credit, where there's political pressure, financial pressure, whatever it is. But if you can remove that and think about what you're trying to accomplish and what are the pieces you need to align to get there, you'll actually get there faster.
You'll get out of your own way.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So does anybody have any questions for this amazing panel up here?
About the regionality side of it, so the chain be about the chain will be the water systems. What does that mean? What does it mean to you? Said that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about, the challenge that we have in the water sector with fragmentation of our systems and the economies of scale that can be accomplished when you actually think about consolidating or having, a hub and a spoke model with maybe some distributed infrastructure around. So that's what I was thinking about. I also have worked with regional utility providers in different cities across the country where that relationship and that structure of partnership between, a regional provider and customer communities, I think we're just starting to explore how could we improve that, right? How could there be efficiencies there that we're missing?
I guess my curiosity was because when this goes back to giving opportunity to like opening doors for people. I think what the coolest life lesson is don't just walk through the door, you try it. Like you don't necessarily have doors, you realize that you hit that new boundary, that new space for that you're passing on to the next group. So when it comes to like water infrastructure and goals, needs that need to be passed to the next region, how do we think through that water infrastructure? How do we like with water reuse?
Yeah.
There deficit on.
Right. Well, I'll offer one example and then I'll turn it over to you guys. But one example that I'm seeing already in the Colorado River Basin, you know, the ability of those urban water leaders in that region to invest in each other's projects to offset water use in various communities, that's a regional solution that they're kind of coming up with on their own. But what's the possibility to kind of replicate that in other parts of the country? I think it's a great question. And up to you guys.
Example, we
Yeah.
just completed our Piscataway bioenergy plant, which takes all the biosolids generated from wastewater plants or water resource recovery plants, and it's processed in one location. And we're using some new technology to convert the biosolids to methane, and then turning the methane to pipeline quality natural gas. And so that project's completed. We're generating revenues for the gas, and we're also producing Class A fertilizer that we can put on the market. So we're talking to some other agencies, sister agencies that are near us, and we're talking about, well, as more renewable energy needs are going to continue to be on us, and the challenge of the grid, you know, grid outages and all those issues that affect our ability to run our facilities, there's going to be the possibility that we take other materials besides biosolids like food waste and other organics, and then use those processes that are proven, but have a centralized facility that all these agencies can bring their waste materials to, and have a regional power plant run fueled by biosolids and then generating energy that goes to the grid to make the grid. So that's one type of a regional opportunity that we have.
Absolutely, that's great. I'm actually just trying to think through ways to cut energy costs for those kind of utilities. That's just to reduce a lot of that our energy, but how basically cover the cost of ways to produce biosolids or enhance, or we think of like the opportunity with the regional scope, but yet think of the broader impact.
Thank you. On the regional level, there's a couple different fronts. One is that in our water wastewater sector, there is a tremendous amount of very small utilities that don't have the bandwidth and resources to have the large, very effective programs that the large utilities may have. So figuring out how do we support their knowledge transfer? How do we support, sometimes at a regional level, there may be contracts that a large utility may have that provides that as an opportunity for piggybacking on, say, on-call contracts to take some of the burden from the smaller regional utilities. And so creating opportunities where there's leveraging some of the successes the larger utilities have had to support their smaller utilities that just don't have the infrastructure to do some of the broader aspects, especially when it comes to major challenges like addressing PFAS, or there's with all the new data centers that are going into some areas, there's tremendous water needs, and there's the infrastructure to create the water to support those data centers may not make sense in a smaller regional level. So it may be pooling together resources and collaboration across multiple utilities.
And I'm just going to add, even though I'm not on the panel, what I've seen in the Houston region is wholesale water on a regional basis, but the utilities are still delivering that water, doing the billing and all of the on the ground stuff. But that the water source and the water treatment has become regional, but not necessarily the delivery in the billing. So there's in between
different creative models.
Yeah, there's different creative models.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to thank our panel for being here this morning. Renee, Alan, Anna, it's been a great discussion.
Thank you for all the
And in true just-in-time delivery, we're not going to have to do an audible. Mark Pastrella has joined us out here, and I'm going to hand it off to him to bring our last panel of the day up. they're now informing him that we're moving to the next panel. And we will continue these amazing discussions. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? Same. Same. Nice to meet you.
AECOM, right? Or
Yes.
that's cool.
Yes, but until last June, I was in FEMA, and I used to run that. Just created a show.
Yeah.
It was sorry.
Just to cut it. Hold them. They're not like.
Got it.
So that's how the online.
I understand. I was wondering why everyone was bothering holding them. Brilliant.
Not ideal, but it is what it is. Thank you.
It's
like talking to all my friends here.
Oh man, these chairs.
Morning. We get started? Okay, cool. Good morning, everybody. It's early morning to me, being from the West Coast and getting in late last night. I'm hoping you had a good seminar. Hey, I know you. A good seminar here, and I'm looking forward to sharing the stage here with some really thoughtful folks who together we're gonna talk to you about disaster response, essentially, and innovation related to disaster response. My name is Mark Pastrella. I'm the director of Los Angeles County Public Works. The County of Los Angeles has 10 million people in it, 88 cities. We have our agency is, by definition, Carol and I argue about this occasionally, is the largest municipal public works agency in the United States. That's what we like to claim. What makes us the largest really is the breadth of responsibilities the department has. And one of the reasons I'm here talking to you is our department is a full service emergency response agency. We are the county's building official, we're the flood control agency, and we're the sewer agency, the water agency, and we're the builder for the county as well. So we're full service public works agency, and we're currently responding to the largest natural disaster in LA County history, at least wildfire disaster in LA County history. So I'm going to give a little roundup on that. But before I go further into that, I also want to introduce the speakers today that are here with us. We have Sarah McTargan. She's a principal research associate and climate code lead with the Urban Institute. We have Derek Hebert with us here today as well, infrastructure resilience practice leader at AECOM. And Stan Gamont, senior advisor at Haggerty Consulting. And if you look in I'm sure you got a handout and you can look at their bios and deeper understand their work and lived history. They bring a lot to the table in terms of innovation and what's going on in the current space, at least in the civil space on innovation. And before we started talking about what we want to talk about here, we fell on this idea of like innovation out of necessity. So this kind of was a thing that we decided to go with. So what I'm going to do is give a little bit of summary of what's going on in Los Angeles right now, just to catch everybody up what's happening, and maybe give you some ideas about how we, due to necessity, are innovating. There's some kind of neat things happening with respect to our response to these fires. And then I'm going to have a dialogue with the rest of the panelists here, just their thoughts about this subject matter. So as I said, in January of 2025, LA County and city suffered the largest wildfire devastation we've ever had in LA County. It's not that we haven't had wildfires, we have them all the time and they've been devastating, but this one has numbers that are significant. We lost 16,000 structures, damaged or destroyed, and most importantly, we lost 31 lives, which is tragic. One life is too many, 31 is unbelievable. If I had time today to tell you about how these people lost their lives, we would all be in tears. And one of the tragedies of it is about those lost lives is that the system that serves them, the civil works that serve them, if you will, the infrastructure
had in some cases had something to do with them not losing their lives, which, you know, of course, as a director of public works, that's what keeps you up every single night is, have we done enough to prepare people? And what more could have I done? And yet there's still life lost, you know. For instance, in LA, every week we have 2 to 3 residents, drivers that lose their lives in a traffic accident or in a pedestrian accident. So it happens, but in this case, tragically, people weren't ready. And part of the reason they weren't ready is our infrastructure was not at the level of resilience that we would like it to be. Nearly 200,000 residents were displaced and continued. A large number of those residents continue to be displaced. So housing is a major issue. I know we have folks here who have HUD background. We'll talk to you a little about that. Our projected damage economic impact is 250 to 500 to 275 billion dollars, and we're only asking for 8 billion from the federal government, and we can't even get that. Debris removal is interesting. I know we have Army and military folks here. The Army Corps of Engineers did a wonderful job moving debris with us. We moved 5 million tons of debris. The Corps moved, to be exact, they moved 2.6 million tons, and the county came and mopped up and took the rest of that because, you know, the Corps only removed on their mission the fire and ash and debris from the houses that burn and structures that burn, but they did not remove all of the debris that didn't qualify outside of that footprint. And we are still moving this other half of that debris. That 5 million represents about a half or more than a half of the total waste load for all of LA County in 1 year. That is a nutty number, right? And so we took that from an unsafe condition to a safe condition, and we did it in incredible speed, 6 months. We did that with innovation. We innovated, or first, people call it streamlining. Or we streamlined the permitting process by creating, for instance, 1 permit across the whole county to remove the debris from a piece of property. So we had to get permission from people to go on property. That's this ROE program. The county stepped up, talked to the city bought in, were forced to buy in, the idea of the county using our technology and our permitting system, which is an enterprise system, and we converted that system and installed all kinds of interesting new software pieces into it and routines to be able to identify that you're the owner, identify that that you're a proper contractor, and then also inspect on properties that we normally don't inspect on throughout LA County. So we were in the city's jurisdiction doing this. And we did that again, and we did that timely and effectively and safely, and we did a heck of a job. Actually, the quality control was very high too. We inspected it as well. So our QA/QC were all aided by technology, common technology we're using today, basically, you know, laptop digital approach. The thing that was unique about it was we used a lot of AI and artificial intelligence to go in and look at the data and to process data so we could identify, interesting enough, who should go first. And it would be a long explanation why you decided to do that. We also introduced the idea that, you know, simple thing, seems simple now, but like being able to use a smartphone, go on and say, I'm in, I'm out, enrolling in the system through smartphone and doing that quickly. So that we took what would be normally like hundreds of pages of handwritten application, and we put it into probably more like somebody did it, 20 pages, but on a readable interface for our survivors, so that they trying to reduce the effort to actually get the debris off your property. And then also we were really at risk of, and this is the risk for innovation, is losing trust in the public. So to be very careful in these inventions that we weren't complicating it more, losing trust of public, and then not being able to remove debris and leaving hazardous debris on property because people wouldn't trust us to do it. So a lot of pressure on the county, on my resources, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers to basic thing was maintain the trust of the public so that we can provide them a service that would prove to be useful for the whole community. So what's going on now is where we're at right now is we have 2,453 residential permit applications received. We've issued 1,666, and I have about 1,200 active construction sites going on, actively constructing in the unincorporated area. The city has a much smaller number actively going, but relevant to the number we're doing, it's about the same if you just look at the percentage of those that they've issued. We've only issued 28 certificates of occupancy, and it's already been more than a year. But the rate in which we are actually issuing permits and reviewing permits is something that hasn't been done across the country. And that's because along with that permitting process for the debris removal, we also took new tools. We're using, you know, our own chat and AI to process permits. We got the land use data for every single property, analyze that through using AI, and put together a package for every single property in unincorporated county. So when you walked in the door, we knew what your land use is, we knew where you could build, we knew what the envelope for construction is. As long as you were building a like for like or a residential project, you can pick your architecture. We were able to issue you that, give you that, and cut lots of the runaround that would go on normally by a professional consultant to actually determine what the buildable area is, what the square footage is, what type of construction, all those things. We also took the zoning code and the building code and we put it into an AI framework model, and we're actually plan checking land use as well as we're working very hard to trying to do plan check with an AI model. It's not going perfectly well, but it is helping. The other thing we did is we introduced self-certification. And so, which I always believed in, and was so happy that I got to break down the barrier of that as the ex-building official and as the current building official of the county. I don't know why we're not holding professionals more responsible for the work they're doing and trusting them with what they're doing. So we have over 150 practitioners that have been certified for self-certification. What that means, you can walk in and say these plans meet the LA County Building Code, essentially stamp them, and they're approved. This has resulted in a turnaround time for us of 30 days total in our hand, 30 days total in our hand. And then of course, the other portion of that is when it's in the consultant's hand. One of the innovative things we did, basic tool was calling the consultants the minute they get their corrections and asking how we can help. How can we help you with those corrections? How can we, having a face-to-face, computer-to-computer conversation about what we were intending, what we're trying to get you to do in terms of change of plan and trying to turn those plans around. This has resulted in a super expedited process in the county for permit plan check using some of the innovation and more that I told you about. And we are taking that model and we're going to put that throughout all of LA County once we're done. So we called it a pilot to make all the regulators in my house calm down. They hated me and I'm like, well, I'm one of you. So there we go. And now they're adopting it. And what I told the engineers was this will give you an opportunity to go to field and verify that our housing stock is being built resiliently and in compliance with the code. So we're going to start moving our engineers to that, practicing that, actually maybe have them build something themselves, but also go out and do a review of construction and do forensics on those structures that were lost and how they operate and what we might do to change our building code to even make it more resilient. So the challenge right now continues to be what I'm seeing is happening. As we measure, I'm going to finish here. What we're doing is what I did is benchmark something. I was trying to set and ask a goal, a population goal for this, and it's difficult because when you first start out, your eye is going to be really in the weeds down here, and that's what everybody does. Like, how fast can you get a permit done? Or, you know, usually what we resolve in doing is we tell people they just lost their permit, like, hey, you need to learn how to get a permit. That is not a good goal. Teaching every resident how to get, but the residents will typically go to that because they want something to do, tangible to do. This is the first step. They think this is the first step. We changed that to our goal to be creating certainty so that you can make a decision, your best decision, even in this very difficult emotional moment, about whether or not to rebuild or not, or even rebuild or not, because there's lots of different situations. So just for all you know, we've looked at the average return rate of people to a wildfire area for all over the country, as well as our own county. And you're doing really well if you get 60% of people, 60% of homes rebuilt, not people, the people themselves rebuilt in a 10-year period. And it blows you away when you look at this. And so that has repeated itself over and over again if you look at the data. So what we did is we set a goal for ourselves, create certainty. So the strategy was get as many of these people back in the home that want to return to their home as quickly as possible, so that we can return the culture, for instance, of Altadena. And we define culture as people, places, and the environment. So we look at those different iconic pieces and we're like, what are the strategy to return people, the environment, and places like iconic destination places and businesses in this community? That's a great goal. The first piece of that is permitting, but the bigger picture of it is managing that reconstruction. How do you decide what goes where first, who goes first? The same thing we did with debris removal. So right now, what we're doing in response to that is developing what's called a disaster rebuild authority. This is a long name. Recovery Rebuild Authority. The authority would be an entity within the county of Los Angeles that has construction and land use authority and authority to enter into private-public partnerships to manage, to fund, and manage the recovery of this community. It's like a master building, except you don't own all the land, right? So you have to have partnerships to do that. Honoring the current land use, so not changing land use, honoring the current land use, and with an eye on recovering culture of Altadena. So we talk about Altadena Palace, it's the same way. So this rebuild authority, again, is something that there's been different kind of versions of it through the years. I think Sandy, they tried to do this, and other places. I know in Katrina, they did this to some extent. We've been looking at those models, and we're trying to create this model for this event. And I am working very hard, lobbying very hard to have this funded and to be coming in as a part, just as a little personal aside is, I would be the building authority for LA County if this happens. And so a little project that I'm very interested in starting. As the rebuild authority, I intend to use all innovation possible and to maximize leverage private-public partnership to get this done. One, because I think that is the way we get the best coordination and the quickest and most efficient return to culture, given the event that we're in, given the situation that we're in. Because I'm overwhelmed just with my own resources in-house right now to maintain our current level of service. Whether it's responding to fires, responding to services, we have this new event that is basically a new city that we have to build. And so you want to build up the resources, and we want to do that in a modern way. So the way we're looking at the Rebuild Authority is like a startup. And we're looking for funding from private, public, and the federal government to fund this, because without funding, obviously, it doesn't go anywhere. So there's a lot behind what I just told you, but just a little bit of like how, again, just starting with the theme, necessity drives innovation, right? And crisis drive innovation for sure. And those of us that are going to keep a business edge and keep any kind of business leverage or edge these days, we have got to incorporate innovation in what we're doing. And what a time for innovation. I am so excited that I got to be still working as a professional with AI hitting the street the way it is. I'm really excited to hear what folks on the panel are doing with AI. I can tell you that our organization, our 4,000 employees, we got KPIs on them to use AI. We are trying to immerse this into everything we do. The engineers love it because they don't have to write anymore. But more importantly, the machine learning and the service to the product to market is so much faster. And for us, that's services to people who are in need. It's so much faster and so much more focused, and the tip of the spear right there, what they need in their hand, way quicker than we've ever been able to provide it. And so it's exciting time for innovation. And this example I gave you of this crisis is just one of the things we are applying innovation to. Okay, so with that little backdrop, let me go through. I think we're going to do this by question and answers. What I told. Okay, so I'm going to start out with some questions from the panel. Let me get to those. Okay, so Sarah, how can stakeholders ensure that projects are being built for tomorrow's threats, including major disaster events? I want to give a little background too about yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invitation. Pleasure to be here today. My name is Sarah McTarnian. I help lead the climate program at Urban Institute. That means I'm not a climate scientist, but I spend a lot of time translating to community stakeholders, to housers, community developers, what climate impacts are doing or might do to their communities. And so, Mark, I'm so glad you brought in the concept of uncertainty. One of my favorite ways to translate all the rich climate science is around kind of the certain uncertainty of climate change. We've seen events like the LA fires, the Marshall Fire also happening in winter, Hurricane Ida creating flooding, not on the coast in New York, but off the coast in parts of downtown and into neighborhoods, heat and cold in places that we don't expect it. And so really what we're trying to think about is how can we help stakeholders to not have to wait until after they've experienced that to be able to embrace that type of thinking and rise to the challenge. Something I hear all across my work in communities is once we've lived it, we get it. But I really feel that all of us have a professional responsibility to make sure everyone doesn't have to live it to get it. And so just in answering your question, Mark, thinking about, I work on the research side, so I'm going to do a cop out and give a data answer, but I do think there's a really important role of data here. You all, engineers in the room, have incredible technical skills and tools for understanding the physical risks and what that means for our built infrastructure. I think what this moment asks of us, though, is to be integrating additional inputs into those models. So not just is the building likely to stand, but who's likely to be living in that building or using that building? What do we know about their demographics and functional needs? And how can the design address those right from the beginning? What do we know about population and economic trends in the places we're building? And how could we be building not just to future environmental conditions, but also to what we might imagine? And as we've been understanding changes in the policy environment, it's also a fiscal question. What is the kind of state, local, private capacity to take on additional costs and address these things? And so I think that's just an invitation to think about many possible scenarios and not just one future scenario, and to really take kind of a cross-sector look at the different inputs that are driving essentially whether or not a project is resilient at the end. And so I think I'll build on whoever was bringing up the partnership elements as well to say that that's clearly not just the work of engineers themselves, that really is a cross-sector effort. And so getting around with the public agencies that are responsible for then managing that infrastructure, with the community groups that help navigate long-term recovery, and with the private sector that's helping in that either preparation or recovery delivery, how can we kind of tackle these big questions in a different way?
Yeah, and it's such good points, and we run into it regularly. One of the things I regularly talk about is that it's the duty of those that do to communicate what we know, but also ask what we don't know. And that you mentioned both those pieces there, so I appreciate that. Derek, how should organizations structure themselves to respond more effectively to large-scale disaster recovery? And how can under-resourced communities adapt when they don't receive the level of funding needed for resilient recovery?
So thank you very much. And so Derek Hebert, I was the assistant administrator for hazard mitigation at FEMA headquarters. We had about a $35 billion disaster risk reduction portfolio. I also ran regulatory floodplain management. So your folks have had to deal with my folks in the past. And then in June, things got a little crazy, and I went to AECOM, and I went to engineering because it's critically important in this time that we can point to an outcome and say, we can get you there. And when I look at things like the Olympics or Battery Park City and knowing and asking the question, how do we get there? It is really important. So I'm going to start with a little background. So in the 1970s, we decided we didn't want government to be able to ram freeways through neighborhoods. And we took steps to make it impossible for government to run freeways through neighborhoods. And it worked. And government can now do nothing. And now we're in this environment where you can't run through freeways through neighborhoods, which is good. And nobody has the ability to do anything, even when there's nothing there after disaster. And it's been because you're in an environment where you have the same complexities and more land uses, toxic materials, you have different funding sources, you have different survivor needs and expectations, political complexity. How many times have you heard an engineer say that the biggest risk to their timeline is another government agency? That's daily. That's insane. That's a problem that we own. We have to own it. If we aren't the ones managing that problem, there is literally no one else that can. And I believe it is undermining the public's confidence in our system of government today. So we have to be able to deliver. Now imagine a program with 29,000 different work packages, 1,100 different jurisdictions, dozens of federal, state, and local agencies, and impacts across all major infrastructure sectors. That's Hurricane Maria. That's Hurricane Maria. Billions of dollars and a completely intractable, impossible problem. your challenges and what you're dealing with in LA, 16,000 structures, hundreds of thousands of residents. Everybody thought, well, these are rich people, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And it turns out that's not even enough. And it was a stereotype, and especially in unincorporated Altadena. So when I look at the question of disaster agency, so I'm a state and local emergency manager originally. I grew up through doing mitigation planning and things like that, and I got to the role in the federal government through kind of a roundabout way. But after disaster, government gets together in an emergency operations center during a disaster, just before sometimes, and you have everybody there, and you're able to be, you work together, you have unity of command, you have a span of control, you have management by objectives, clear operational periods, regular communication, and a unified mission set. That breaks down within the month or two following a disaster of any size. Everybody goes back to their pipes, their stovepipes, and they all work to deliver recovery in accordance with their own mission. And every single one of them has their own federal patron, which means everybody can operate individually. Every single one of them has their own regulations and authorities, which means that they can safely, frankly, ignore those of other people. And then we say, well, we're going to solve that. We're going to get everybody in a room. We're going to sit in a circle, and we're going to all say what we do. We're going to coordinate our way to recovery. Well, do you think that actually, we've all sat in those meetings before. How much did we listen to the other person and even have anything actionable from it? Not often. Well, it turns out disaster recovery in the United States is run that way, with federal coordinating officers that come in an overwhelmed, overburdened jurisdiction to say, well, we're going to bring in all these resources. We're going to drive toward recovery. Immediately, it breaks down to stovepipe, task-oriented efforts, where they can count your project worksheets, but they can't count what it feels like to be back in your community with your life restored. Right. And that's a serious problem. So why am I telling you all of this here? And it's because I believe we need an organization that is capable of managing by objectives, reconstituting authority, even if it's in a defined geographic area, that is able to internalize the complexity. Complexity exists. Organizations can internalize it and reduce the transaction costs of complexity. That unify the mission objectives and ultimately the focus and the way that the organizations judged. And by the way, just like in an emergency, also can be temporary. And it turns out that this organizational model already exists. It's what your firm and ours did to build Crossrail. It's the infrastructure mega program model. I have sat through presentation after presentation of AECOM's work in the Olympics. I just salivating over the possibility of running a disaster recovery in that way, where you actually have brought in a true delivery partner instead of this absurd staff augmentation model where you bring random people off the street and say, go figure it out, instead of actually having people with real skin in the game and real training. Right. Where you have where you're able to manage, coordinate, deliver the financing across multiple different project types, and where you get vertically aligned authority. So you're bringing in, and this requires the politicians, but you're bringing in the permitting, the design, the decision making about the work that has to be take place in a defined geographic area, and make it and vertically integrating it within the same organization with the same mission. I think we need to adopt the mega program model for disaster recovery. I think this is the thing that will help us internalize and deal with these issues. And the thing is, in the United States, we haven't done it. We've got Core 3. Yeah. That is a great start with terrible political problems because they can't manage transitions. Right. We've got like the abortive Louisiana Recovery Authority was there for a year or two. We didn't do anything with Sandy. You've got some really cool stuff happening in the U.S. Virgin Islands where they have integrated linear infrastructure in the same organization. Fantastic, 100 and something thousand people. Very kind of isolated case. I'm very excited about the way you're talking about using authorities. I've been following it closely with the climate resilience districts and things. But the key thing I want to stress here is you can't continue to run it in the same way. And the people who specialize in disaster recovery don't actually understand mega program management. And the mega program management folks I've met with don't really understand disaster recovery. Right. Yeah. And we've got to marry the two. And I think that's actually something we can do here.
Yes.
And I think it's the thing that's going to make a difference in, at least in Altadena, and hopefully if LA City ever
LA
moves in this
City,
direction.
Yeah. Well, I need you to come to LA and pitch this to everybody that I've been pitching this startup to. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm excited to talk more with you about it as we put more frame around it. But you've described exactly the concerns that we've had and what the model we have in mind, and as you said, the project management folks need to be brought in, construction managers to understand construction, and don't bring the firemen to the fire, because that's not the recovery people, that's the response people, and that's usually what we see doing. So yeah, you pointed out all the weaknesses and the things that I'm trying to do. I guess my concern, and we'll talk about this, always is, it's just like, I think of it like the NASA program. We finally went back to the moon, right? Or we're going to. From my little perspective of that, it's like that's the uncertainty in government. That government can't take the risks that others can, and so a program gets lost. And so one of the things I am concerned, I'm trying to incubate this or keep this protected from, and I'm calling it a pilot for a reason.
Yeah.
Is that I'm trying to get elected officials to take a risk on something.
Yes.
And of course, some of the start on this already has been chewed up even guessed about it. And there's even been conspiracy theories that I'm looking to buy all the land and redevelop it as, low income housing. Oh yeah, that's my goal. So yeah, trust. For us, it keeps coming back to trust. So okay, Stan. Here's a question for you. Should engineers be designing beyond code, prepare for future challenges? And how would we justify the additional costs and time that may entail to owners?
So good morning. My name is Stan Demott, Senior Advisor for Community Recovery and Haggard Consulting. Haggard is an emergency management disaster recovery firm. That's what we do. It's all we do. Been with the firm now for going on 7 years. Prior to that, I was with the U.S. Department of Housing and Development for 32 years. In the last 11 years, I ran a community development block grant program, which included a very significant disaster recovery portfolio that probably was only worth close to $95 billion for big grants. So, bit of background. So I don't bury the lead. The answer is yes, it should be designed. But be prepared to delineate as you go through the process between the required versus what is the good idea. Because you're going to have to get to finance the required questions. How do you convince somebody about the value of the good idea? So the necessity is to sell the good idea. How is this investment going to save money? A couple moments ago, thinking about this, that flashback to a movie from the mid-80s, Moonstruck. Anybody remember that? Yeah, when Vincent, but it costs money because it saves money, right? So you have this concept. You've got to spend something in order to save something down. There has to be a sales job.
Yes.
About the idea of, yes, it's going to cost more now, but the idea is, look how much it's costing us to do this today. We have to do it again in another 5 or 10 or 15 years. The cost will be incrementally greater. We could just cost down by looking at inflation and use a standard rate over the years. That say, okay, if we don't do this investment now, we're going to have to do this again in the future. Always great to hear Sarah talk about the unpredictability of weather. The severe nature of it keeps increasing. You get more rain, you get higher wind, the fires are hotter, the winds blow harder. So you need to be offering the improvement. What is that good idea? What is that investment? But you also have to be prepared to sell that idea publicly and demonstrate what the value of that investment is going to be. When you think about this with community recovery, you need to think about it in a couple of different ways, on a couple of different levels. Residential is one thing versus commercial versus the public sector question. Each one of them will have a little bit of a different standard. I would really appreciate you talking about the difficulty in working with the homeowners and all the advancements you've made to move the ball forward, because the willingness to abandon the way you've done business previously is a necessity if you really want to make progress. It's a significant event of this nature. because your process is maybe built on a year in, year out basis to handle X number of permits and inspections and things of that nature. If you're not prepared to go 5X, 10X, how are you going to be able to accommodate what the public expects? You've got to be thinking about how you achieve that. But coming back to the idea of resilience at the individual level, the homeowner level, again, most homeowners are going to have finite resources.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you get them to look at the additional improvement of investment? And this is where the public sector is going to have to play a little bit of a role to incentivize either on the tax or on the financing side for people to make that additional investment. Show them that there is value there, that, again, there is savings in the long haul, but there has to be some incentive to get them there, spend the money today, because frankly, many of these households are financially strapped, like 200,000 still displaced. Every one of those households is probably under tremendous financial pressure right now.
So true.
So you need to think about how you get this done. I think the other thing is to also think about how you rebuild in a more cost-effective and better way. And some of that is, again, abandoning the traditional way of doing business. The idea of stick-built housing, one at a time, each one is unique. Going to have to be a bit of a reconciliation in many places with regard to more of a factory-based model where it's either panelized, modular. Some places there's going to be a manufactured unit, but you think more of it as a trailer home. But when we think about modular, the average stack, cube, and built together, panelized, put up in a particular format to achieve what the homeowner wants. But that's cost savings. You can build a better, tighter product that way. Again, needs to be some thinking and some leadership to get you where you need to go on that front.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And I think that has to come, I would say to the practitioners in the room, is like, it has to come from the whole industry. I know I had my own firm at one point, and I was designing homes, and a homeowner, I would suggest something to a homeowner. I actually started just not suggesting, just putting it in the design, ethically putting things into design, and we figured out the cost some way. This is my price, and this is what we're going to do. And of course, the materials, they didn't know necessarily the materials amount. It's funny when you say to a homeowner, I think you should do this, but it may cost a little more, rather than saying, and sort of the delivery is saying, this is going to keep you safer. My design, I'm going to design at a certain level. The County of Los Angeles accepted LEED silver on all of our buildings, for example, as a public agency. And, we have standards, as you said, that we build to. The community, it was funny, right away, community members were saying, oh, that building code's so hard to comply with, and I'm not going to, or, you're going to make me do all these extra things. It's California, make me do all these things. And I'm thinking to myself, if we just take your 1920 structure that's gone now and build to today's building code, you got all the upgrades you need. So a lot of people were coming to us saying, you're not going to make them build the lasers. Yes, we are. We're going to have them comply with the building code. There wasn't a need to actually sell it to anybody. We just have them apply the law,
I think as a parting point on this question, leadership by example is important.
Yes.
In the local government.
Yes.
In that you got to show you're going to invest.
Yes.
In the community, that you are going to do things that are going to reduce the risk to that homeowner and to that community. And if they see that you're going to make that investment as public officials, well, then that, again, you're getting back to selling the idea of their investment. I think it's important.
Yeah, very true. Especially for me, since I went to a personal loss of my own and was rebuilding my own home at the same time. And people were like, how come you're not putting in that special, zone 0 at your house? So I can relate to what you're saying. It was important, and we made the investment. Okay, so I have a kind of a question for either Derek or Stan. You both could take a shot if you'd like. The scale of the challenges faced today. Oh, wait a minute, Sarah. What can be done to ensure that all communities impacted by disaster are able to have access to equal levels of support and resources in the recovery process?
Yeah, I think it really builds on things we've been talking about already, and it's just important to state the obvious that time and time again, we see after disasters that recovery is not equal, that disparities that exist in a community before the disaster are exacerbated and widened after. And so the things that we're talking about around the scale, around the costs and the challenges, we also need to layer in an approach of who's most impacted, what resources did they have before, and how can we help close that gap? And so I think what you pointed to around kind of trusted partners and just the themes of trust is really important. Keeping track of folks through this displacement process that is much longer than anyone would ever imagine is one of the core challenges. I've just done some work, Stan, following the DR program as it reaches renter households and just tackling the challenge of staying in contact, understanding what household goals are. I love the framing you offered around what would it look like for us to achieve their goal and not an arbitrary number around rebuild, and move things forward. So we've been doing some fun work with colleagues of yours in the Office of Sustainability, thinking about what does it look like to take lessons learned around energy efficiency so that recovery processes can help with the stressors that people were feeling before around utility bills and other issues. And so I think it's just a call to accept that we know what happens if we don't act in this way, and to be really thoughtful about understanding those needs, understanding those trends, interrupting them through targeted programs, through trust and outreach, and then really through like understanding what the outcomes are long term. And I think that's something that the disaster recovery field can do a lot better of over time, is really making the case for what success looks like as an ecosystem and in a place specific context.
Yeah, all very good points. Okay, now I'll ask Derek and or Stan. The scale of the challenges faced today in disaster recovery requires new and innovative strategies for success. Can you give us a couple examples, outside the box or outside the box approaches? This is like a lightning round thing. So
Maybe let me go first, because
Okay.
I think I'm going to have something less specific, that Barry came up with, which is the value of planning. I would come back to you more. Did the county have a plan if it lost 16,000 units? How to go about doing this? How to address it? Maybe you did. Be unique amongst local governments for that.
I would ask you, did we have a plan and did the city have a plan? Who do you think had a plan? The county definitely had a plan, I can tell you that.
But it's important to think about how you go about this. I mean, there are a lot of jurisdictions that get hit in the face. As
Yes.
Tyson would say, everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the face. You got to give a little forethought about how you're going to go
Yes.
about doing this. Because if you're trying to do it in the wake of the event, after thinking about some counties in Florida, we lost 22,000 units, things like that. When you're trying to think about all these issues in the heat of the moment, you're probably going to make
Forget
a lot
about
of
it, yeah.
mistakes. And you're going to miss a lot of steps, and you're probably going to step on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So there is some value here in thinking about how you'll go about this, in blue sky days. Spend time and effort to do that, because if you want to recover aggressively, you really have to have a plan. You can't make a plan up after the event.
So true.
Again,
So
I would
true.
just say that is that's critical. The other corollary to that is understanding your financial resources.
Yes.
As you say, you're going and asking for $8 billion. It's nowhere near what the damage is, and you're having some difficulty extracting some folks here.
Yeah.
That one. Plus FEMA, we're going to find out a little bit tomorrow about
Right.
what FEMA might do.
Yeah.
What the recommendation.
Very
I
interesting.
think that there's some number of months to come. Some changes may pass there, but I don't think you can necessarily count on FEMA doing the
Right.
system
Yes.
program the way they run it for years on that, over decades. So you need to understand what your financial resources are. What does your general fund look like? What does your borrowing and taxing capacity look like? Things of that nature. But you're going to need to find that one in order to move forward.
Yeah. I can't agree with you more. If you think about the largest self-help county in the country with the resources we have, and we were overwhelmed. I can only imagine what the rest of the country is, where they haven't been experiencing these kind of events. LA County is the most hazardous place to live in the country. So we have been used to this in preparing. I can only imagine what it is like in a smaller jurisdiction or other places where the weather events haven't happened like this.
So I want to start by agreeing very strongly with a couple of things that Stan said, specifically around pre-planning being important. That has essentially never happened in any of the case studies I've looked at for disaster recovery authorities. I will also say that it's like the thing, the program definition framework is the first step in mega program development. And the rule applies here too. Same on the finance and the management of the finance, the multiple streams of money. I've been looking at this question of how to take what I know about disaster resilience and recovery, and having done hazard mitigation and disaster recovery at state government, local government, and in the federal government. And I've seen examples in Christchurch, New Zealand, and their earthquake recovery authority, a lot of really good things, but it bit off trying to control the rebuilding itself, the physical reconstruction of the downtown. That was too much. That means you got to leave the core final decisions of construction up to the people who are doing it. Then you have the Lower Manhattan Community Development Corporation rebuilt the 9/11 site, an incredible triumph. Took 20 years, lots of political challenges. But again, a lot we can learn from there. You've got things I've already mentioned, the Core 3 and other examples like that have something to teach us. For those who want to know more, a book called After Great Disasters has 8 in-depth organizational discussion case studies that is absolutely worth taking a look at. So when I'm looking at this though now, what I'm hoping we can get to from an innovative perspective, number one, states and locals, especially locals like LA County, should take the federal pullback as a gift, because there is an effect that happens when the federal government does something that no one else then does it. It has a tremendous crowding out potential, and it's rational in the public sector and to not do what someone else will pay for. But what this means is that we have authorities on the books today that can, for example, delegate the entire running of the hazard mitigation grant program to state governments. So you don't have to go through FEMA review and approval. Mm-hmm. You could take all of the money from that and use it to put fire-resistant roofs on every recovered property. You could spend all the money on that. You could do it yourself. You could have virtually no federal involvement, but you do need to build an organization that is outcomes focused and isn't just an organization that's thinking about how it's going to get money. If there's one problem that I wish we would change, is we would stop saying, if only I had more money, I would succeed. If only I had more this or more that. It's not. Well, you can give these places and us an unlimited amount of money, in fact, that they have in recent years. And we still don't succeed because our organizations aren't actually set up to deliver the outcomes that we know we need to get to. And so what I would say is, let's change the discussion in the way we talk about what we're trying to do. Let's orient around outcomes. Let's focus on the temporary nature of authorities like yours, because that can lower the political risk and lower the political temperature. And let's try to de-risk the program before we ask for money. Let's say, here's the way we're going to build that thing. This is why you can trust us with this public sector, private sector funding. This is why it's going to work. And here's the delivery model proving that we can do it. And as you were saying, I think many times, talking about the delivery model you choose makes all the difference in the world when it comes to the success of the program. And so it sounds a little crazy for those of us who haven't worked on both sides, but this is the innovation that's needed. And I think if we can move in this direction in partnership with folks like yourself, I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, really great points. I do believe I am a total believer in local control, and I agree with you that as much as I've been saying we're being strangled, the fact of the matter is we're still going to do the recovery, and there's enough capital in the world to actually have this recovery. There's enough demand of this land for it to recover. So I do think there's enough money in the world. It's just sometimes in the wrong place. But reorganization and setting priorities is the first step before you go and ask for money, like just throwing money at it. Yeah, really good point. I'm being told to cut, so I have to cut. And I got a note from here. This person wants you into the, so, and now Marcia's standing next to me, so I'm going to stop right there and thank everybody for their time.
What an amazing panel. Sarah, incredible. Just what a note on. Very encouraging. You know, I do see a bright future. You know, through all the disasters, through all the suffering, to have a beacon of hope like that, you know, in all the situations you talk about, that's really encouraging. So thanks again for your event.
All right.
So in closing, First of all, I want to thank all of the amazing speakers. We were really given a gift today. Helped us to better understand innovation and infrastructure, policy, technology, partnerships, all to help us have the best built environment that we can have. I want to thank all of you who came out in person to join us. The energy in the room was really good. And thanks to all those who joined us online. I hope they could hear all the great discussions. We love the opportunity to work with you, to collaborate with you. Certainly want to thank the Reservoir Center once again, Reservoir Center for Water Solutions. What a great partner with ASCE time and time again. And today was just another great example of that partnership. And of course, last but not, oops, what a terrible time for me to hit the wrong button. It's a great picture, but it's missing the CDM Smith logo. I do want to thank CDM Smith and of course, especially Hala Titus for joining us today. Tremendous support in hosting this event for us. We value your dedication to ASCE and to the profession. And with that, I will send you all off to have a great lunch and thank you for joining us.